My mother-in-law kept rearranging my house every time she visited because it wasn't clean enough, so I rearranged her life in a way she'll never recover from. Cordelia had been doing this for 3 years. She'd arrive unannounced, march through my front door like she owned the place, and immediately start moving my furniture. "This couch belongs against the east wall," she'd announce, already pushing my sectional across the hardwood. "And why do you keep books on the coffee table? Books belong on shelves." My husband Matthias would just shrug when I complained. "That's just how she is," he'd say. "She means well." But I knew better. This wasn't about cleanliness. This was about control. The pattern had started during our engagement. Cordelia would arrive with cleaning supplies and trash bags, systematically dismantling whatever organization system I'd created. She'd rearrange my kitchen cabinets while I was at work, claiming she was helping me find a better system. When I'd complain that I couldn't find anything afterward, she'd sigh dramatically and suggest I needed to be more flexible with change. She'd move my bedroom furniture while I was showering, insisting the bed looked better facing north for better energy flow. When I'd move it back, she'd look hurt and tell Matthias I was rejecting her help. The worst part was how she'd gaslight me about it afterward. When I'd mention that she'd moved something, she'd look confused and say, "Are you sure? I don't remember touching that." Or she'd claim she was just tidying up a little, and I was overreacting to normal helpfulness. Matthias never witnessed the worst of it. Cordelia was strategic about her timing. She'd wait until he was at work or running errands. By the time he came home, she'd be sitting innocently on my rearranged furniture, acting like nothing had happened. I started documenting everything. Photos of my rooms before and after her visits. Timestamps. Lists of what had been moved. But when I showed the evidence to Matthias, he'd just shake his head. "Mom's getting older," he'd say. "Maybe she forgot she moved things. Or maybe you're remembering wrong." That made me feel crazy. Was I imagining this? Was I being paranoid? But then I'd find my grandmother's china hidden in the basement, or discover that Cordelia had thrown away my favorite throw pillows because they clashed with the couch. The gaslighting extended beyond furniture. Cordelia would make subtle digs about my housekeeping, my cooking, my career, always framed as helpful suggestions or constructive criticism. When I'd get upset, she'd look shocked and tell Matthias I was too sensitive and couldn't handle feedback. "I'm just trying to help," she'd say with tears in her eyes. "I want what's best for both of you." But her idea of what's best always involved me changing something about myself or my home to meet her standards. The final straw came last Tuesday. I'd just finished setting up my home office, my sacred space where I ran my freelance graphic design business. I'd spent weeks arranging everything perfectly. My drawing tablet positioned at the optimal angle, my color swatches organized by gradient, my inspiration board carefully curated with images that sparked creativity. I came home from groceries to find Cordelia in my office, dismantling everything. "This room was a disaster," she said without looking up. "No wonder you can't focus on your little hobby." My what? She'd packed my expensive equipment into random boxes, rearranged my desk to face the wall, and thrown away my inspiration board because it looked cluttered. 3 years of collected magazine clippings, photographs, and fabric samples, gone. "Where's my inspiration board?" I asked, my voice shaking. "That messy collage? I threw it away. This room needs clean lines, not chaos." I ran to the garbage and found it there, torn and coffee-stained. Hours of careful curation, destroyed because it didn't match her aesthetic. "You had no right to throw away my things." Cordelia looked genuinely confused by my anger. "I was helping you create a professional workspace. How can you concentrate with all that visual noise?" That visual noise was my inspiration. I use those images for my work. She waved her hand dismissively. "Then you should keep them in a file folder like a real professional, not scattered all over the wall like a teenager's bedroom." That night, I made a decision. If Cordelia wanted to rearrange things, I'd show her how it's really done. I started small, researching everything I could about her life outside our interactions, social media profiles, local newspaper mentions, public records. I wanted to understand who she really was when she wasn't playing the concerned mother-in-law. What I found was revealing. Cordelia craved control and status. She served on multiple charity boards, not out of genuine compassion, but because it gave her power and recognition. She was president of the Westridge Country Club's charity committee, a position she'd held for 15 years through what appeared to be strategic manipulation and intimidation. I began attending her committee meetings as a volunteer. I wanted to observe her behavior in her natural habitat, to understand her methods. The first meeting was enlightening. Cordelia ran the committee like a military operation. She assigned tasks with detailed instructions, criticized anyone who deviated from her vision, and took credit for successful events while blaming others for any problems. I watched her humiliate a volunteer named Patricia for suggesting a different floral arrangement. Cordelia didn't just reject the idea, she destroyed it, explaining in condescending detail why Patricia's taste was inappropriate for our demographic. Patricia left the meeting in tears. 2 other volunteers resigned via email that evening. But Cordelia wasn't just controlling, she was stealing. During my 3rd meeting, I noticed discrepancies in the financial reports. Cash donations that were collected but never deposited. Auction items that sold for higher amounts than what was recorded in the books. When I asked innocent questions about the accounting, Cordelia's face tightened. "Financial matters are handled by the board," she said sharply. "Volunteers don't need to concern themselves with such details." But I'd taken photos of the paperwork with my phone. Later, I compared the numbers with the bank statements that were briefly visible on her laptop screen. Thousands of dollars were missing. I started documenting everything systematically, recording her screaming at volunteers when she thought no one was listening, photographing her taking cash donations home instead of depositing them, following her to banks and noting which accounts she accessed. The pattern was clear. Cordelia was embezzling from every organization she controlled: the charity committee, The church fundraising drive, the neighborhood improvement fund, small amounts from each, but it added up to significant theft over time. But that was just the beginning. The real breakthrough came when I started investigating her family history. I wanted to understand what had shaped her into someone who needed to control everyone around her. Cordelia had grown up as the eldest daughter in a wealthy family. Her father owned several successful businesses, and her mother was a prominent socialite. From the outside, it looked perfect. But digging deeper, I found troubling patterns. Cordelia's younger brother, Fitzgerald, had been born with developmental disabilities. He was high-functioning but required assistance with complex tasks like financial management. Their parents had set up a trust fund for his care when they died, naming Cordelia as the trustee. That's when I discovered the most damning evidence of all. For 5 years, Cordelia had been systematically draining Fitzgerald's trust fund. She'd been moving money from his care account into her personal accounts, using her position as trustee to authorize expenses that were actually funding her lifestyle. Meanwhile, Fitzgerald lived in a state-run facility that was barely adequate. The private care facility his parents had intended for him would have cost more money than Cordelia was allowing him to access. She was literally stealing from her disabled brother to maintain her lavish lifestyle and fund her criminal activities. The injustice of it made me physically sick. Here was a woman who criticized my housekeeping while robbing her own brother of the care their parents had planned for him. I knew I had to act, but I needed to be strategic. Cordelia was intelligent and well-connected. If I made a wrong move, she could destroy the evidence and paint me as a vindictive daughter-in-law. I spent weeks planning my approach. First, I needed to secure Fitzgerald's cooperation and make sure he understood what was happening. Then I needed to gather enough evidence to ensure Cordelia couldn't escape consequences. The drive to Fitzgerald's facility took 6 hours. I'd never met him before. Cordelia had always made excuses for why we couldn't visit. He gets confused by new people, she'd say. It's better for him to maintain his routine. But when I met Fitzgerald, I discovered a kind, intelligent man who was perfectly capable of understanding complex situations. He wasn't confused or fragile. He was isolated. Cordelia tells people I can't handle visitors, he said sadly. But I love meeting new people. I just don't get many chances. I showed him the bank statements I'd copied, carefully explaining what each transaction meant. His face went through a range of emotions: confusion, hurt, anger, and finally, determination. My parents wanted me to live at Sunset Manor, he said. It's a beautiful place with art therapy and gardening programs. Cordelia said we couldn't afford it, but these numbers suggest we could have afforded it for years. She's been stealing from you, Fitzgerald, taking money that's legally yours and using it for herself. He was quiet for a long time, processing the information. I always wondered why she seemed so nervous when I asked about money, he finally said, and why she never wanted me to meet with the bank representatives directly. I helped him contact a lawyer who specialized in elder abuse and disability rights. Damian Rodriguez was young but experienced, having handled several cases involving trustee misconduct. This is one of the clearest cases of financial abuse I've seen, he told us after reviewing the evidence. The paper trail is extensive, and the amounts stolen are substantial. But I wanted more than just financial justice for Fitzgerald. I wanted Cordelia to face consequences for all her crimes, not just the ones against her brother. That's when I decided to create a comprehensive case against her entire criminal operation. I spent another month documenting everything: the embezzlement from multiple organizations, the pattern of psychological manipulation and abuse, the intimidation of volunteers and committee members, the tax evasion involved in hiding stolen funds. I created a detailed timeline of her crimes, complete with supporting evidence for each allegation: bank records, audio recordings, photographs, witness statements from people she'd intimidated or stolen from. The file was 2 inches thick when I finished, but I knew exposing Cordelia would have consequences for my marriage. Matthias worshipped his mother. He'd grown up believing she was a saint who sacrificed everything for her family. Learning the truth about her criminal activities would devastate him. I tried to prepare him gradually, mentioning small inconsistencies I'd noticed in her stories, asking innocent questions about family finances, suggesting we visit Fitzgerald more often. But Matthias always defended her. Mom's not perfect, he'd say, but she's been through a lot. Raising me alone after Dad died, taking care of Uncle Fitzgerald's needs. Cut her some slack. I realized he'd been conditioned his entire life to make excuses for her behavior. She'd trained him to see her manipulation as sacrifice, her control as love. The day everything came together started like any other Tuesday. Cordelia had called that morning to announce she was coming over to help organize the garage. I knew this meant she'd rearrange my storage system and throw away things she deemed unnecessary. But this time, I was ready. I'd coordinated with Damian to time Fitzgerald's legal action with my evidence about the other crimes. Multiple law enforcement agencies would be acting simultaneously to prevent Cordelia from destroying evidence or fleeing. The doorbell rang at exactly 2 p.m. I answered to find 2 police officers, a social worker, and an expensive-looking attorney standing on Cordelia's perfectly manicured porch. "Mrs. Cordelia Ashworth?" the officer asked. From inside her house, I heard her voice crack as she said yes. They had a warrant for her arrest. Charges of elder abuse, embezzlement, and fraud. Fitzgerald's lawyer had done his homework, and the evidence was overwhelming. But that wasn't all. FBI agents were simultaneously raiding her office at the country club, seizing financial records and computer files related to the charity committee's accounts. As they led her away in handcuffs, she spotted me watching from across the street. Our eyes met through the police car window. She mouthed something I couldn't hear, but her expression was pure hatred. I waved, just like she'd always done in my house, rearranging things without permission. That evening, Matthias came home to find me reorganizing our living room. I was moving everything back to where I wanted it, where it belonged. "Did you hear about Mom?" he asked, looking confused and shaken. Hear what? I replied innocently, though my heart was racing. He explained what he'd learned from the police, the charges, the evidence, the scope of her crimes. I don't understand, he said, sinking onto the couch. How could she do this to Uncle Fitzgerald? To all those charities? I sat beside him and took his hand. Power corrupts people, I said gently. Your mother got addicted to control, and when that wasn't enough, she started taking money to maintain her lifestyle. But you must have suspected something. You were volunteering with her committee. I chose my words carefully. I noticed some inconsistencies in the financial reports. When I asked questions, she shut me down pretty aggressively. That's when I started paying closer attention. It wasn't exactly a lie, but it wasn't the whole truth either. I wasn't ready to tell him about my months-long investigation. Not yet. We spent that evening processing the news. Matthias alternated between defending his mother and expressing shock at the evidence against her. I let him work through his emotions while quietly celebrating my victory. But as I turned around to get us some tea, I noticed something that made my blood run cold. On my kitchen counter sat a manila envelope I'd never seen before. My name was written on the front in handwriting I didn't recognize. Inside was a single photograph and a note. The photo showed me entering Fitzgerald's care facility. The angle suggested it had been taken from a car in the parking lot, using a telephoto lens. Someone had been following me. The note read, I know what you did. Meet me tomorrow at midnight or everyone else will too. My hands shook as I examined the envelope more closely. No postmark, no return address. Someone had hand-delivered this while we were home, probably while we were distracted by the news of Cordelia's arrest. I slipped the envelope into my purse before Matthias could see it. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about who could have taken that photo. Who knew about my visits to Fitzgerald? I'd been so careful, always checking my mirrors, varying my routes to avoid establishing a pattern. Apparently, not careful enough. I spent the next day going through the motions of normal life, working on client projects, fielding calls from neighbors who'd heard about Cordelia's arrest, pretending everything was fine while my mind raced with possibilities. Who wanted to meet me at midnight? What did they want? Money? Silence? Something worse? At 11:30 p.m., I told Matthias I was going for a drive to clear my head. He was already half asleep, exhausted from dealing with the media attention and concerned relatives calling about his mother's situation. Be careful, he mumbled into his pillow. The address in the note led to a 24-hour diner on the outskirts of town, the kind of place where truckers stopped for coffee and pie at all hours. I'd never been there before, but it felt appropriately anonymous for whatever was about to happen. I parked under a streetlight and waited, my heart pounding. At exactly midnight, someone slid into the booth across from me. It was a woman I'd never seen before. Mid-40s, auburn hair pulled back in an expensive-looking chignon, designer handbag that probably cost more than my monthly mortgage payment. She looked like she belonged at the country club, not in a greasy diner that smelled like cigarettes and burnt coffee. You must be Cordelia's daughter-in-law, she said, extending a manicured hand. I'm Victoria Hayworth, and we need to talk. I didn't take her hand. You've been following me, among other things. She signaled the waitress for coffee, with the casual confidence of someone accustomed to being served. You see, Cordelia and I have been business partners for quite some time. My stomach dropped. What kind of business? Victoria smiled, but the expression didn't reach her eyes. It was the kind of smile that appeared in boardrooms just before someone got fired. The kind that requires moving money around without too many questions being asked. Charity auctions where the winning bids never get properly recorded. Estate sales where certain valuable items never make it to inventory. That sort of thing. She was describing a sophisticated money laundering operation that went far beyond Cordelia's simple embezzlement. Cordelia's arrest has created a rather significant problem for me, Victoria continued, adding cream to her coffee with deliberate precision. She knows details about our arrangement that could be problematic if she decides to share them with prosecutors looking to reduce her sentence. What does this have to do with me? Everything. Victoria pulled out a tablet and showed me a bank statement. The numbers were staggering. Cordelia moved $127,000 through various accounts over the past year. Money that doesn't officially exist on any tax documents. Money that certain people expect to be returned, regardless of Cordelia's legal troubles. The coffee arrived, steam rising from cups that had seen better days. Victoria sipped hers like we were discussing the weather instead of criminal enterprises. Here's what's going to happen, she said, her voice taking on the tone of someone accustomed to being obeyed. You're going to convince your brother-in-law to drop the charges against Cordelia. Tell him you made a mistake, that you misunderstood the bank statements or exaggerated her actions out of personal animosity. I won't do that. Yes, you will. She swiped to a series of photos on her tablet. Because if you don't, I'll make sure everyone knows how you manipulated a disabled man to destroy his own sister. How you drove to that facility with fake documents and coached him on what to say to lawyers. The photos showed me with Fitzgerald, talking earnestly, gesturing as I explained the financial documents. Taken completely out of context, they could easily be interpreted as manipulation rather than education. These photos don't show anything inappropriate. Context is everything, Victoria interrupted smoothly. And I control the narrative now. One phone call from me, and you become the villain in this story. The greedy daughter-in-law who wanted Cordelia out of the way so badly, she convinced a vulnerable man to file false charges. She showed me more photos. Me copying documents at the facility's business center. Me meeting with Damian Rodriguez at his law office. Me taking notes during conversations with Fitzgerald. I have a very compelling story about elder abuse and manipulation, Victoria continued, about how you isolated a disabled man from his family and filled his head with lies about his loving sister. The media would eat it up. I felt sick, but I forced myself to stay calm. You have 48 hours, Victoria said, standing and leaving a $20 bill on the table. Convince Fitzgerald to recant his accusations, or I release these photos along with sworn statements from witnesses who will corroborate my version of events. What witnesses? Victoria smiled that cold smile again. Money buys a lot of things, including testimony from facility staff members who will swear they witnessed you coaching Fitzgerald and threatening him when he hesitated to cooperate. She gathered her purse and walked toward the exit, then turned back. Oh, and don't think about going to the police with this conversation. It's my word against yours, and I have evidence of your manipulation campaign. They'll be more interested in prosecuting you than protecting you. I sat in that diner until 4 a.m., drinking coffee that tasted like betrayal and thinking through my options. Victoria had me cornered. If she released those photos with the wrong narrative, my reputation would be destroyed. My marriage might not survive it. And Fitzgerald would be painted as an unreliable witness, which could actually help Cordelia's defense team. But I'd underestimated one crucial factor in this equation. I wasn't the only person who'd been investigating Cordelia. The next morning, I called Damian Rodriguez and asked for an emergency meeting. His office was in a converted Victorian house downtown, the kind of place that specialized in David versus Goliath cases. We need to talk, I told him. Someone's trying to manipulate your client. An hour later, I was in his office explaining about Victoria and her threats. I showed him the photos she'd taken and repeated her ultimatum word for word. Damian listened carefully, taking notes on a legal pad covered with his illegible scrawl. Show me the photos she has, he said. I pulled up the images Victoria had shown me on her tablet. I'd managed to take pictures of her screen with my phone while she was distracted by the waitress. Damian studied them with the intensity of someone accustomed to finding the truth hidden in details. These don't show anything inappropriate, he said finally. You're talking to my client in a public setting. Family members visit disabled relatives all the time. There's nothing here that suggests manipulation or coercion. But with the right narrative, forget the narrative for a moment. He leaned forward across his desk. Tell me everything you can remember about this business partnership Victoria mentioned. I repeated everything Victoria had said about the money laundering operation, the charity auctions, the estate sales, the movement of money through various accounts. Damian's eyes lit up with the expression of a lawyer who'd just found the smoking gun. If we can prove Cordelia was involved in organized fraud beyond the embezzlement from her brother, it strengthens our case significantly. It shows a pattern of financial crimes, not just a one-time theft motivated by desperation. He started making phone calls while I waited. I could hear fragments of conversations about wire fraud, money laundering, and federal charges. 20 minutes later, he hung up with a grin that reminded me why I'd chosen him to represent Fitzgerald. Victoria Hayworth has been on the FBI's radar for 2 years, he said. They've been trying to build a case against her money laundering operation, but they needed someone on the inside to provide evidence. What do you mean? I mean we're going to set a trap. The plan was elegant in its simplicity. I would meet with Victoria again and pretend to agree to her demands. But this time I'd be wearing a wire provided by the FBI. She's desperate. Agent Carmen Reeves explained during our briefing at the federal building downtown. Cordelia's arrest exposed her operation to scrutiny. She needs to shut down any loose ends quickly, which means she'll be careless. Agent Reeves was a compact woman in her 40s with the kind of intense focus that comes from years of hunting financial criminals. She'd been tracking Victoria's operation since a bank compliance officer had flagged suspicious transactions involving several charity organizations. Victoria's network launders money for some very serious people, Agent Reeves continued. Drug dealers, human traffickers, arms dealers. They use charity auctions and estate sales to convert dirty money into clean assets that can be legitimately owned. She showed me photographs of art pieces that had been sold at charity auctions for 10 times their actual value. The buyers were shell companies controlled by criminal organizations. They'd pay inflated prices for worthless items, effectively laundering their money through fake charitable transactions. Cordelia was perfect for this operation, Agent Reeves explained. Respected in the community, access to wealthy donors, no apparent criminal background. Nobody suspected the sweet old lady running charity events. The recording device was tiny, barely larger than a button, and virtually undetectable when properly positioned. Agent Reeves showed me how to activate it and ensure optimal audio quality. We need Victoria to describe the operation in detail, she said. Amounts of money involved, names of other participants, specific methods used to launder funds. The more she tells you, the stronger our case becomes. That evening, I called Victoria and delivered my surrender speech. I'll do what you want, I said, injecting defeat into my voice. But I need more time. Fitzgerald trusts me, but convincing him to recant won't be easy. He's been looking forward to getting justice for years. You have 24 hours, Victoria replied curtly. Meet me tomorrow night. Same place. Bring proof that you've contacted his lawyer about dropping the charges. The next evening, I returned to the diner. This time, a tiny recording device was taped under my shirt, and Agent Reeves was parked outside in an unmarked van, monitoring the conversation through an earpiece. Victoria arrived exactly on time, dressed in a different expensive outfit but wearing the same cold smile. Well, she said, sliding into the booth with the confidence of someone who believed she'd already won. I spoke to Fitzgerald's lawyer, I said, playing my role carefully. But he's refusing to drop the case. He says there's too much evidence of financial abuse, and backing down now would make Fitzgerald look unreliable. Victoria's face hardened, the mask of civility slipping slightly. Then, we'll have to be more persuasive. I have contacts at the care facility where Fitzgerald lives. Staff members who owe me favors from previous business arrangements. It would be unfortunate if his medications got mixed up, if he had a fall in the shower, if he became confused about what really happened with his trust fund. My blood ran cold, but I forced myself to stay calm and keep her talking. You're talking about hurting an innocent man. I'm talking about protecting a business worth millions of dollars. Victoria snapped, her voice rising enough that other patrons might have noticed if the diner hadn't been nearly empty. Cordelia's just the tip of the iceberg. We have operations in 6 states. Dozens of people who depend on this income. She pulled out her phone and showed me photographs of documents, bank accounts in the Cayman Islands, shell companies registered in Delaware, art purchases that had never actually occurred, existing only on paper to justify large financial transactions. We've been washing money for some very important people, Victoria continued, her voice taking on the tone of someone who enjoyed having power over others. They don't like complications, and they don't accept excuses when things go wrong. I pretended to study the documents while making sure the recording device could capture everything she was saying. How much money are we talking about? Last year alone? $8 million. Victoria leaned forward, her eyes glittering with a mixture of pride and threat. This isn't some small-time charity scam your mother-in-law was running on the side. This is serious business with serious consequences for anyone who interferes. She outlined the entire operation in detail. How they identified charities with loose financial oversight and wealthy donor bases. How they recruited trustees and board members who could be either bought or blackmailed into cooperation. How they created fake auction items and inflated sale prices to justify moving large amounts of money. Cordelia was perfect for this, Victoria continued, echoing what Agent Reeves had told me. Respected in the community, access to wealthy donors, and desperate enough for status and money that she was willing to overlook the ethics of what we were doing. And now she's a liability. If she talks to save herself, a lot of people go down, including me. Victoria's voice turned threatening, which is why you're going to make sure she doesn't get the chance. How am I supposed to do that? She's in federal custody. Victoria slid a small vial across the table. It was barely an inch tall, filled with a clear liquid that looked innocuous enough to be water. Cordelia's being held in county lockup pending trial. Visitors are allowed twice a week, and you're on her approved list as family. This gets dissolved in liquid, tasteless, undetectable by standard autopsy procedures. I stared at the vial in horror. You want me to poison her? I want you to solve our problem permanently, Victoria said matter-of-factly. Cordelia dies of apparent natural causes, Fitzgerald withdraws his accusations out of grief, and the investigation loses its primary witness. Everyone wins. Except Cordelia. Cordelia made her choice when she got greedy and sloppy. She was supposed to steal small amounts that wouldn't attract attention. Instead, she started embezzling from her own brother and keeping poor financial records. She brought this scrutiny on herself. That was all Agent Reeves needed to hear. Within minutes, the diner was surrounded by federal agents. Victoria's face went white as Agent Reeves approached our table, her badge visible and her weapon drawn. Victoria Hayworth, you're under arrest for conspiracy to commit murder, money laundering, witness intimidation, and operating a continuing criminal enterprise. As they handcuffed her, Victoria looked at me with pure hatred and the dawning realization that she'd been played. You have no idea what you've done, she hissed as they read her rights. These people don't forget. They don't forgive. You think federal protection will keep you safe forever? Agent Reeves gestured for the other agents to take Victoria away, then sat down across from me. You did excellent work, she said. That recording will put her away for life and give us everything we need to dismantle her entire operation. What happens now? Now, we use the information she gave us to arrest everyone else involved in the network. Bank executives who processed suspicious transactions. Art dealers who created fake provenance documents. Charity officials who falsified auction records. The vial Victoria had given me was collected as evidence. Later analysis would reveal it contained a concentrated form of digitalis, a heart medication that becomes lethal in large doses and metabolizes quickly enough to avoid detection in standard postmortem examinations. She had literally asked me to commit murder. The next few weeks were a blur of depositions, court appearances, and media attention. The FBI's investigation uncovered a massive money laundering ring that stretched across multiple states and involved millions of dollars in illegal transactions. Victoria had been right about the scope of the operation. Dozens of arrests were made, including several prominent charity officials, bank executives, and art dealers who had facilitated the money laundering scheme. Cordelia, facing federal charges in addition to the elder abuse case, decided to cooperate with prosecutors. In exchange for a reduced sentence, she provided detailed information about how Victoria had recruited her and trained her to embezzle funds in ways that would support the larger criminal enterprise. The cooperation deal revealed even more disturbing details about Cordelia's involvement. She hadn't just been a victim manipulated by Victoria's organization. She'd been an enthusiastic participant who had suggested new ways to steal money and recruit other unwitting accomplices. Your mother-in-law is a sociopath, Agent Reeves told me during one of our debriefing sessions. The psychological evaluation ordered by the court shows she has no empathy for her victims and no remorse for her crimes. She's only cooperating because it benefits her personally. Fitzgerald finally got his money back. More than his money, actually. The FBI seized assets from the criminal organization worth millions of dollars. And victims like Fitzgerald received compensation not just for what was stolen, but for years of lost investment income and additional damages. With proper funding, Fitzgerald was able to move to the private care facility his parents had originally intended. Sunset Manor was everything he'd dreamed of: art therapy studios, gardening programs, social activities with other residents who shared his interests. I'm learning to paint landscapes, he told me during one of our visits. And I joined the book club. We're reading mystery novels, which seems appropriate given everything that's happened. Matthias struggled with everything that had been revealed: his mother's arrest, the scope of her criminal activities, learning that his wife had been instrumental in exposing it all. Why didn't you tell me what you were doing? He asked one night as we sat in our living room, arranged exactly how I wanted it for the first time in years. Because I wasn't sure you'd believe me, I admitted, and because I needed to protect Fitzgerald. Your mother had been gaslighting both of you for years about his capabilities and needs, but the danger you put yourself in with Victoria was worth it. I took his hand. Your uncle is safe now. Your mother can't hurt anyone else. And the people who were using her to commit crimes are in prison where they belong. He was quiet for a long time, processing everything that had changed in our lives. I always knew she was controlling, he finally said, but I never imagined she was capable of this. The theft, the criminal organization, the willingness to have people killed to protect her secrets. Sometimes the people closest to us are the hardest to see clearly, I said gently. She conditioned you from childhood to see her manipulation as love and her control as protection. 3 months later, Cordelia was sentenced to 12 years in federal prison. The judge noted her cooperation with the investigation, but emphasized the severity of her crimes and the vulnerability of her victims. You betrayed your own brother's trust, he said during sentencing. You stole from disabled individuals, elderly citizens, and charitable organizations that serve the community's most vulnerable populations. This court finds your actions particularly heinous given your position of trust and responsibility. I didn't attend the sentencing, but Matthias did. He wanted to support Fitzgerald, not Cordelia, and to see justice served for his uncle's suffering. She showed no remorse, he told me afterward. Even at the end, she was trying to justify what she did, claiming she was the real victim, manipulated by Victoria and pressured by circumstances beyond her control. The house felt different after Cordelia's sentencing, lighter somehow, as if a weight had been lifted that I hadn't fully realized was there. I rearranged the furniture again, not because I had to, but because I wanted to, because it was my home, and I could arrange it however I pleased. My design business began to thrive in unexpected ways. Word spread about what had happened, and potential clients started seeking me out specifically. They wanted to work with someone who had stood up for what was right, even when it was difficult and dangerous. I heard about what you did for your brother-in-law, one client told me. I need someone with that kind of integrity to help me redesign my space after leaving an abusive marriage. I started specializing in helping people reclaim their spaces after major life changes: divorce, death, recovery from abuse, transitions that required not just new furniture arrangements, but entirely new ways of thinking about home and safety and control. The work was deeply satisfying in ways that went beyond aesthetics or functionality. I was helping people rebuild their lives, literally and metaphorically. But the story wasn't over. 6 months after Victoria's arrest, I received another envelope. No return address, hand-delivered while I was at work. Inside was a newspaper clipping about a prison transport accident in Nevada. Victoria Hayworth had been killed when the van carrying her to court for another hearing had been struck by a semi-truck on a remote stretch of highway. She was the only fatality. The clipping was attached to a note. Some debts never get forgiven. Stay vigilant. I called Agent Reeves immediately. We've been expecting something like this, she said grimly. Victoria was cooperating with our investigation into the larger criminal network. She'd named names, provided bank account information, testified about the operational structure. A lot of powerful people wanted her silenced. Was the accident really an accident? The truck driver disappeared from the scene. We found the semi-abandoned 20 miles away, wiped clean of fingerprints. Whoever did this was professional. Am I in danger? We don't think so. You were a means to an end for Victoria's arrest. The real targets were her and the evidence she could provide. But we're assigning protective surveillance for the next few months just to be safe. The surveillance was discreet but comforting. Unmarked cars in my neighborhood. Agents posing as delivery drivers and utility workers. A panic button connected directly to the FBI field office. I installed a comprehensive security system at the house. Cameras, motion sensors, reinforced locks. I started checking my mirrors again when I drove, varying my routes and schedules to avoid establishing predictable patterns. But I refused to live in fear. I'd learned too much about the importance of fighting back, of refusing to be controlled or intimidated. Matthias and I visited Fitzgerald regularly at his new facility. He was thriving in ways that broke my heart when I thought about the years he'd lost in substandard care, while his sister stole his inheritance. I'm learning to paint portraits now, he told me during one visit, showing me a surprisingly skilled watercolor of the facility's garden. The art therapist says I have natural talent that was never properly developed. What would you have done differently if you'd had access to this kind of care earlier? I asked. He thought about it seriously. I would have learned to advocate for myself sooner, he said. Cordelia always told me I was too simple to understand complicated things like money and legal documents, but I understand more than she gave me credit for. I just needed someone to believe in my abilities. You've got that now. Yes, he smiled. And I've got justice too. That's worth more than the money she stole. 1 year later, I was reorganizing my office when I found something that stopped me cold. A file folder I'd forgotten about, filled with documents from my investigation of Cordelia. At the bottom of the stack was a handwritten letter I'd never seen before. From Cordelia to Victoria, dated just 2 weeks before her arrest. The letter detailed their entire operation in Cordelia's own handwriting. Bank account numbers, names of co-conspirators, amounts of money laundered through specific transactions. But the last paragraph made my blood run cold. The girl is becoming a problem. She asks too many questions at committee meetings and pays attention to details that should be ignored. If anything happens to me, make sure she pays for her interference. People like her need to learn their place. And I'm tired of pretending to tolerate her disrespect. Cordelia had seen me as a threat long before I'd exposed her crimes. She'd already been planning to hurt me, probably through Victoria's network of criminal contacts. I showed the letter to Agent Reeves during one of our periodic check-ins. This confirms what we suspected, she said. Cordelia wasn't just a victim of Victoria's manipulation. She was an active participant who specifically wanted you targeted for elimination. So everything that happened was always going to happen. You just chose to fight back instead of being a victim. The letter served as a sobering reminder of how close I'd come to serious harm. If I hadn't exposed Cordelia when I did, if I hadn't gathered enough evidence to bring down Victoria's organization, they would have eventually moved against me directly. I kept the letter as a reminder, not of the danger I'd faced, but of the strength I'd found when everything was on the line. 2 years passed. Matthias and I moved to a new house, one that had never been touched by his mother's controlling presence. We chose a Victorian cottage with original hardwood floors and built-in bookshelves that I filled with art books and design magazines. We planted a garden together, adopted a rescue dog named Buster, who had been abandoned by previous owners, but learned to trust us completely. Built the life we wanted without anyone else's interference or manipulation. I never heard from Victoria's criminal associates again. Either they'd decided I wasn't worth the risk, or they'd been arrested in subsequent FBI operations that dismantled the larger money laundering network. My design business expanded beyond individual clients. I started consulting with domestic violence shelters and transitional housing programs, helping survivors create safe, nurturing spaces after leaving abusive situations. You understand what it means to reclaim your space, one shelter director told me. Most designers focus on aesthetics, but you understand the psychological importance of control and autonomy. The work was deeply meaningful. Each project was a small victory against the forces that tried to diminish people's sense of agency and self-worth. My mother-in-law had taught me something valuable, though she'd never intended to. She'd shown me that sometimes the only way to deal with someone who tries to control you is to rearrange the entire game board. Not just the furniture, the whole damn system. 3 years after Cordelia's arrest, I received a final envelope. It arrived on a Tuesday morning, and I almost threw it away, assuming it was junk mail. But my name was written in handwriting that I recognized from years of passive-aggressive notes left around my house. Inside was a letter from Cordelia, somehow smuggled out of federal prison. You destroyed my life, it began in her familiar, precise cursive. But you didn't destroy my memory or my connections. I know things about your precious husband that would break your heart. Things he did before he met you. People he hurt. Secrets he's kept from you since the day you married him. My hands shook as I continued reading. Ask him about Elena Vasquez. Ask him about the night she died in that car accident. Ask him why he really moved to our town so suddenly and married you so quickly after meeting you. Ask him why he changed his name and his entire identity. The letter included photocopies of newspaper clippings from a town 300 miles away. A young woman named Elena Vasquez had died in a hit-and-run accident 5 years ago, the same month Matthias had moved to our town and started the job where we'd eventually meet. I spent that day in a haze of disbelief and growing dread. Matthias was at work, dealing with another engineering project deadline. I researched Elena online, read about the accident investigation, studied the timeline of events. The pieces fit together with horrible precision. Elena had been 26, a kindergarten teacher engaged to her college sweetheart. She'd been walking home from a friend's bachelorette party when a car struck her and fled the scene. The impact had been severe enough to kill her instantly. The police had found evidence at the scene, paint chips, headlight fragments, tire tracks, but they'd never identified the vehicle or the driver. The case remained unsolved. When Matthias came home that evening, I was sitting at our kitchen table with the letter and newspaper clippings spread out in front of me. He saw the documents and went pale, his face draining of color in a way that told me everything I needed to know. Where did you get these? He asked quietly. Your mother. She says you killed this woman. Matthias sank into the chair across from me, his hands shaking as he reached for the newspaper clipping. I didn't mean to kill her, he said quietly, but I didn't save her either. The story came out slowly, painfully, like poison being drawn from a wound that had festered for years. 5 years ago, Matthias had been a different person, living in a different town under a different name. He'd been struggling with alcoholism, depression, and a gambling addiction that had cost him his job and most of his friends. The night Elena died, Matthias had been drinking at a casino bar, trying to forget about his latest losses at the poker tables. He'd consumed far more alcohol than he should have, but convinced himself he was sober enough to drive home. I'd driven drunk dozens of times before, he said, his voice barely above a whisper. I thought I was invincible. I thought I was careful enough to avoid consequences. 3 blocks from his apartment, driving through a residential neighborhood where he thought there was no traffic, Matthias had seen Elena too late. She'd been crossing the street, wearing dark clothing, invisible in his impaired peripheral vision until the moment of impact. I felt the car hit something, he said, his voice breaking. But I was so drunk, so panicked, I convinced myself it was a trash can or a mailbox. Something harmless. He'd driven home and passed out, only realizing the next morning when he saw the damage to his car and the news reports about Elena's death. What did you do? I panicked. I was drunk. I'd killed an innocent woman. I knew I'd go to prison for vehicular manslaughter, so I made a plan to disappear. Matthias had spent that day destroying evidence and creating a new identity. He'd driven his damaged car to a chop shop and had it dismantled for parts. He'd withdrawn all his money from bank accounts, closed credit cards, and destroyed any documents that connected him to his old life. I bought fake identification from someone I knew through gambling connections. New name, new social security number, new background history. Then I drove 300 miles away and started over. He'd moved to our town, changed his appearance, found a job using his engineering skills, but with completely fabricated employment history. He'd become a different person, carefully constructing a new identity that had no connection to the man who'd killed Elena Vasquez. And then you met me. I wasn't looking for love, he said, tears streaming down his face. I was just trying to survive each day without being caught. But when I met you, for the first time since the accident, I felt like maybe I could be human again. I stared at the man I'd married, the man I'd trusted completely, the man who'd let me destroy his mother while hiding a secret that could have destroyed us both. Does Cordelia know all of this? She suspected something from the beginning. She hired a private investigator when we got engaged, supposedly to do a background check for insurance purposes. The investigator found inconsistencies in my story, gaps in my employment history, discrepancies in my identification document, and she's been holding this over you ever since. Not actively threatening me, but I always knew she could destroy me if she wanted to. That's part of why I never stood up to her, why I let her treat you badly. I was afraid that if I crossed her, she'd expose everything. I thought about all the times Matthias had defended his mother's controlling behavior, all the times he'd asked me to just ignore her rearrangements and criticisms, all the times he'd chosen her side over mine. You let her torment me because you were protecting yourself. I know how it sounds. It sounds like you're a coward who let his wife fight his battles while he hid behind a lie. We sat in silence for a long time. The kitchen that had been my sanctuary now felt contaminated by the truth of what my husband had done, what he'd hidden from me for our entire relationship. What happens now? He finally asked. I don't know, but I did know. I'd spent 3 years fighting for justice, for truth, for the people who couldn't fight for themselves. I couldn't live with a man who'd built our entire relationship on a foundation of lies and death. Elena's family deserves to know what happened to her, I said. If you turn me in, I'll go to prison, probably for 20 years or more. If I don't turn me in, I become complicit in covering up her death. Matthias reached across the table for my hand, but I pulled away from his touch. Please, he said. I know I was wrong. I know I should have stayed at the scene, should have called for help, should have faced what I did, but I can't change that now. And turning me in won't bring Elena back. No, but it might give her family closure, and it might prevent you from hurting someone else. I would never hurt anyone else. You hurt me, I interrupted. You hurt me every day for 3 years by letting your mother control and manipulate me while you hid behind a secret that could have explained everything. That night, I called Agent Reeves. I need to report a hit-and-run accident from 5 years ago, I said. The next morning, police arrived to arrest Matthias. As they led him away in handcuffs, he looked back at me with the same expression his mother had worn 3 years earlier when she'd been arrested. Betrayal, confusion, the shock of someone they'd underestimated finally choosing justice over loyalty. I stood in our doorway, my doorway now, watching the police car disappear around the corner. For the 4th time in my life, I was going to have to rearrange everything. Elena's family deserved justice. Her death deserved investigation, and I deserved to live with someone who hadn't built our love on lies and dead bodies. The house felt different that afternoon, emptier, but also cleaner somehow, like a weight had been lifted that I hadn't fully realized was pressing down on me. I started in the bedroom, packing Matthias's clothes into boxes, then his books, his personal papers, his photographs, every trace of the man I'd thought I knew, the man who'd never actually existed. By evening, the house was mine again, completely. Honestly mine for the first time since I'd moved in. I called Fitzgerald to check on him and to let him know what had happened. I heard about Matthias on the news, he said gently. How are you holding up? I'm okay. It's hard, but it's the right thing to do. Cordelia taught me something important, he said. Sometimes the people who are supposed to love you are the ones who hurt you most. But that doesn't mean love isn't real. It just means you have to be very careful who you give it to. How do you do that? How do you learn to trust again after being betrayed so completely? You start with yourself, he said. You prove to yourself that you can make good decisions, that you can protect yourself, that you're worth more than the lies people tell you. 6 months later, I received a call from Elena's mother, Maria Vasquez. I wanted to thank you, she said through tears. For 5 years, we didn't know what happened to our daughter. The police said it was probably a drunk driver who ran away, but we never had answers, never had closure. The investigation had revealed everything. DNA evidence from Matthias's old apartment had matched samples found at the accident scene. His confession had provided details that only the actual driver could have known. He'd pled guilty to vehicular manslaughter, leaving the scene of an accident and identity fraud. The judge had sentenced him to 22 years in prison, noting that his decision to flee and hide had compounded the original crime significantly. He told the court he was sorry, Maria continued. He said living with the secret had destroyed his ability to have honest relationships. I don't forgive him, but I believe his regret is real. Elena deserved so much better. Yes, she did. She deserved to live her life, to marry her fiancé, to teach children, to have children of her own. But she also deserved to have the truth told about what happened to her. You gave us that. After the call ended, I sat in my kitchen, the same kitchen where I'd confronted Matthias, where I'd made the decision to choose truth over comfortable lies. The sunlight was streaming through windows I'd cleaned myself. No one else's hands had arranged the flowers on my table. No one else had decided where my furniture belonged. For the first time in my adult life, my space was entirely my own, arranged according to my preferences, my needs, my vision of what a home should be. My phone rang. It was my real estate agent. I have a buyer for the house, she said. Full asking price, cash offer. They want to close next month. Perfect. I was moving across the country. New city, new clients, new life. I'd learned that sometimes rearranging means starting completely over, building something entirely new on a foundation of your own choosing. The moving truck arrived on a Thursday morning. As the workers loaded my furniture arranged exactly as I wanted it, never touched by Cordelia's controlling hands, I walked through each empty room one last time. The living room where Cordelia had first rearranged my furniture, where I'd realized I had to fight back against her control. The kitchen where I'd discovered Victoria's threatening letter, where I'd made the decision to cooperate with the FBI. The bedroom where I'd confronted Matthias about Elena, where I'd chosen truth over the comfortable lie of my marriage. Each room told part of the story of who I'd become. Someone who refused to be moved around by other people's agendas. Someone who fought for justice even when it cost everything. Someone who chose truth over convenience. Integrity over comfort. The last box was labeled Inspiration Board, the display Cordelia had thrown away 3 years ago, now carefully reconstructed with new dreams and goals. Images of the life I was going to build for myself, by myself, according to my own vision. As I locked the front door for the final time, I thought about all the ways people try to rearrange other people's lives. Through control and manipulation, through secrets and lies, through intimidation and fear. But I'd learned something important. The only person who gets to arrange your life is you. 2 years later, I was running my own design firm in Portland, Oregon. The business was thriving, and I'd hired 3 other designers who shared my philosophy about helping people reclaim their spaces after major life changes. We specialized in working with people who needed to rebuild after trauma, divorce survivors, abuse victims, people recovering from addiction, individuals who'd lost everything and needed to start over. We called the company Fresh Start Designs, and our motto was simple: your space, your rules. One afternoon, a potential client walked into my office. She was in her 30s, well-dressed, but with the exhausted look of someone who'd been fighting a losing battle for too long. My mother-in-law has been controlling every aspect of my life for years, she explained. She rearranges my house every time she visits. She criticizes everything I do. My husband won't stand up to her because she has some kind of hold over him. I listened to her story, remembering my own struggle with Cordelia and the long journey to freedom. She makes me feel like I'm crazy, the woman continued, like I'm overreacting to normal family behavior. You're not crazy, I told her. And you're not overreacting. I shared my own story, not the details about the criminal investigation or Matthias's secret, but the basic truth about learning to stand up to someone who wanted to control your space and your life. How did you find the courage to fight back? She asked. I realized that someone rearranging your furniture isn't really about furniture, I said. It's about power. And the only way to stop someone from taking your power is to take it back, piece by piece, choice by choice. She hired me to redesign her entire house. But more importantly, she started setting boundaries with her mother-in-law, making it clear that her home was her sanctuary, not a project to be managed by someone else. The last time I heard from her, she'd changed the locks and told her mother-in-law that unannounced visits were no longer welcome. Her husband had initially resisted, but eventually chose to support his wife over enabling his mother's controlling behavior. It turns out he was relieved, she told me. He'd been afraid to stand up to her for years, but once I showed him it was possible, he found his own courage. I get stories like that regularly now. People who've learned to rearrange their own lives instead of letting others do it for them. People who've discovered that taking control of their physical space is often the first step toward taking control of their emotional and psychological space. Last month, I received an unexpected visitor. Agent Reeves stopped by my office during a trip to Portland. I wanted to see how you were doing, she said, and to give you an update on some related cases. The money laundering investigation had continued to expand, leading to the exposure of an even larger criminal network. Dozens of additional convictions. Millions of dollars recovered for victims across multiple states. Your courage to come forward started something much bigger than you realized, she said. We've been able to shut down operations that were hurting people all over the country. What about Cordelia? She'll be eligible for parole in 9 years, but given her age and health issues, she'll probably die in prison. And given her complete lack of remorse, the parole board is unlikely to be sympathetic. Agent Reeves pulled out a thick file. We found something else during our investigation. Letters between Cordelia and her mother dating back 30 years. It seems this pattern of control and manipulation was generational. The letters revealed a cycle of abuse stretching back decades. Cordelia's mother had controlled every aspect of her life, dictating her career choices, her social relationships, even her marriage to Matthias's father. Cordelia learned these behaviors from her mother, who learned them from her mother before that. Control passed down through generations like a family heirloom. Hurt people, I said. Exactly. That doesn't excuse what Cordelia did, but it explains the psychology behind it. She was both victim and perpetrator, continuing a cycle that probably went back generations. After Agent Reeves left, I thought about cycles of abuse and how they perpetuate through families, through generations. Someone always has to be the one to break the pattern, to say, this stops with me. I'd broken the pattern in my marriage by refusing to accept lies and manipulation. Fitzgerald had broken it by standing up to his sister with legal action. Even Matthias, in his way, had broken it by finally telling the truth about what he'd done. But the most important thing I'd gained wasn't justice for others. It was myself. The ability to arrange my own life according to my own values. To make choices based on my own judgment rather than someone else's manipulation. To trust my instincts and fight for what's right, even when it's difficult. These days, when I walk into my apartment, my space, arranged exactly how I want it, I remember what I learned from Cordelia. Sometimes the best revenge isn't destroying someone else's life. Sometimes it's building your own. The last chapter in this story arrived exactly 4 years after Cordelia's original arrest. I was working late in my office when the phone rang. It was the warden at the Federal Women's Correctional Facility where Cordelia was serving her sentence. Mrs. Ashworth passed away this evening, he said gently. Heart attack. She named you as the person to contact for final arrangements. I was surprised. After everything that had happened, after the way she'd tried to destroy my marriage and threaten my safety, Cordelia had still considered me family enough to handle her death. She left something for you, the warden continued. A letter she wrote last month. She asked us to make sure you received it. The letter arrived 3 days later. It was written in Cordelia's familiar handwriting, but the neat cursive was shakier now. aged by years of prison life. "I know you probably don't want to hear from me," it began, "but I'm dying, and there are things I need to say before I go." She acknowledged finally the scope of what she'd done: the theft from Fitzgerald, the involvement with Victoria's criminal organization, the manipulation and control that had defined her relationships with everyone she claimed to love. "I spent my entire life trying to control things because I was afraid of what would happen if I didn't," she wrote. "My mother controlled me, so I learned to control others. It's a poisonous way to live, and I poisoned everyone around me." But the most shocking revelation came at the end of the letter. "Matthias isn't my biological son," she wrote. "I've never told him this, but his father had an affair and I found out when Matthias was 2 years old. I raised him anyway, but I always resented him for what his father had done. That's why I tried to control his life so completely. I was punishing him for sins that weren't his own." She explained that Matthias's real father had died in the car accident that had driven him to drink and run away. The man he'd been grieving, the guilt he'd been carrying, was over someone who'd abandoned him before he was old enough to remember. "He deserves to know the truth," Cordelia concluded. "Not because it excuses what he did, but because he's been carrying shame that isn't entirely his to bear." I stared at the letter for a long time, processing this final revelation. Even in death, Cordelia was rearranging things, providing information that would fundamentally change how I understood the man I'd been married to. I forwarded the letter to Matthias's prison, along with a note explaining that it contained important family information. I didn't owe him anything, but I owed Elena's memory the truth, all of it. A month later, I received a letter from Matthias. His handwriting was different now, smaller, more careful, like someone who'd learned that words have consequences. "Thank you for sending Cordelia's letter," he wrote. "It doesn't change what I did to Elena, but it explains some things about my childhood that never made sense. The way Cordelia treated me, the impossible standards, the constant criticism, it wasn't really about me." He'd used the information to start therapy in prison, working with counselors who specialized in helping people understand generational trauma and break cycles of destructive behavior. "I'm not asking for forgiveness," he continued. "What I did was unforgivable. But I wanted you to know that exposing the truth about Cordelia, about me, about everything, was the right thing to do. It was the only way to stop the cycle." I filed the letter away and never responded. Some conversations are finished even when the participants are still alive to continue them. 5 years after leaving my old life behind, I was featured on the cover of Portland Design magazine. The article was titled, "Second Chances: How One Designer Helps Others Rebuild After Trauma." The photo showed me in my office, surrounded by before and after pictures from client projects, people who'd reclaimed their spaces and, in doing so, reclaimed their lives. The interviewer asked about my philosophy of design. "I believe your environment should support who you want to be, not who others expect you to be," I said. "When someone else controls your space, they're controlling part of your identity. Taking that back is often the first step toward taking back everything else." What advice would you give to someone dealing with a controlling person in their life? I thought about Cordelia, about Victoria, about Matthias, and all the ways people try to manipulate and control each other. "Document everything," I said. "Trust your instincts. Don't let anyone convince you that their manipulation is normal or that you're overreacting to abuse. And remember that sometimes the only way to deal with someone who won't respect your boundaries is to rearrange the entire situation." What do you mean by rearrange? I mean change the rules of the game, refuse to play by their rules, create consequences for their behavior. Sometimes that means legal action. Sometimes it means cutting contact. Sometimes it means exposing the truth even when it's painful. That sounds like it requires a lot of courage. It does, I agreed. But the alternative is spending your life in a space that someone else has arranged for you. And that's not really living at all. The magazine hit newsstands on a Tuesday. By Friday, I'd received dozens of emails from people who'd read the article and wanted to share their own stories of breaking free from controlling relationships. Each message was a small victory against the forces that try to diminish people's sense of agency and self-worth. That evening, I sat in my apartment, my beautiful, perfectly arranged apartment, and thought about the journey that had brought me here. From a woman who tolerated her mother-in-law's invasions, to someone who'd exposed a criminal organization. From someone who accepted manipulation, to someone who fought back against it. From someone whose space was constantly rearranged by others, to someone who helped others reclaim their own spaces. The transformation hadn't been easy or quick. It had required courage I didn't know I possessed, strength I'd had to develop through practice, and a willingness to sacrifice comfort for truth. But it had been worth it. Every perfectly placed piece of furniture, every design choice made according to my own preferences, every client who learned to trust their own instincts about their space and their life, every victory, large and small, against the idea that other people get to decide how you live. My mother-in-law had taught me the most valuable lesson of my life, though she'd never intended to. The only person who gets to arrange your life is you. Everything else is just someone else's opinion about where your furniture should go. My mother-in-law said I was too sensitive about her comments, so I recorded every single one for a month. It started at Easter dinner. Veronica, my husband's mom, smiled sweetly across the table and said, "Well, at least you're trying with the cooking." My husband Devin laughed. Everyone laughed. I felt my face burn but said nothing. Later, when I mentioned it hurt my feelings, Devin shrugged. "That's just how mom is. You're being too sensitive." So I started recording. Not obviously, just my phone face down on the counter, voice memos running during family visits. Week 1, I caught 14 comments. "Your house always smells like something died." "Devin deserves someone who takes care of themselves." "I'm surprised you can afford that, given your job." Each one delivered with a smile, often followed by, "I'm just joking, honey." By week 2, I had 47 recordings. The pattern was clear. She'd insult me, then gaslight me when I reacted. You're so dramatic. Learn to take a joke. Why are you always starting problems? Devin would side with her every time, making me feel crazy. But now I had proof. Cold, digital proof. Week 3, something shifted. Veronica started making comments about my fertility. Clock's ticking. If you can't give Devin children, he has options. I was 29. We'd been married 8 months. When I told Devin I felt attacked, he said I was imagining things. His mom loved me. I was creating drama where none existed. I kept recording. By day 28, I had 89 separate incidents documented. I transcribed every word, timestamped everything, organized it into categories. Appearance, 32, homemaking, 24, career, 18, fertility, 15. I made a spreadsheet. I created a highlight reel. Then I waited. Anniversary dinner at Veronica's house. She'd invited Devin's whole family, 23 people total. During dessert, she stood up to make a toast. To my baby boy Devin, who deserves the world. And to his wife, who's still learning how to be part of this family. Everyone chuckled. Devin squeezed my hand apologetically. That's when I connected my phone to her smart TV. The first recording played. Veronica's voice filled the room. She's let herself go completely. I don't know what Devin sees in her anymore. Devin's face went white. His sister Bryn stopped mid-bite. I played the next one, and the next. 4 minutes of greatest hits. Her voice sweet as honey while destroying me in every possible way. The room was silent. Veronica's face had gone from red to purple. This is a violation, she hissed. Recording people without consent is legal in this state, I interrupted. When you have reasonable expectation that abuse is occurring. I checked. Devin was staring at the frozen screen where his mother's last comment was still displayed. If Devin had married Christine instead, he'd be happy and probably have kids by now. His brother Felix spoke first. Jesus, Mom. What the hell? But Veronica wasn't done. She turned to Devin, tears forming. You're going to let her humiliate me like this? Your own mother? After everything I've done for you? I watched Devin's face, waiting for him to choose. For 30 seconds, nobody moved. Then he stood up, grabbed his coat, and said, "We're leaving. Victory, right?" Wrong. In the car, Devin was silent. At home, he finally spoke. You recorded my mother for a month without telling me. She was destroying me. You made me look like an idiot in front of my entire family. You ambushed us at dinner. That's manipulative. I stared at him. Did you hear what she said about me? Of course I did. But there were better ways to handle this. You went nuclear because you can't take criticism. That night, Devin slept in the guest room. The next morning, he was gone before I woke up. His text said he was staying at his brother's place to think. I called him 17 times. No answer. Then my phone buzzed. A text from Veronica. We need to talk. Alone. Tomorrow at 2 p.m. My house. Don't tell Devin. I stared at the message for 10 minutes. Every instinct screamed trap, but I also needed to know what she wanted. I texted back a single word. Why? 3 dots appeared. Disappeared. Appeared again. Because you won the battle, but you're about to lose the war. I can fix this or I can destroy you. Your choice. I screenshot the text, added it to my evidence folder. Then I replied, fine, 2 p.m. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying Devin's words. Manipulative, nuclear, like I was the problem, like documenting abuse made me the abuser. At 3 a.m., I pulled up the recordings again, listening through headphones. Her voice, sugary and cruel. Devin deserves someone who takes care of themselves. Your house always smells like something died. Clock's ticking. How had I survived 8 months of this? The next day crawled by. I called in sick to work. My first time ever. I needed to prepare. I charged my phone fully. I tested the voice recorder app 3 times. I wore jeans and a sweater. Nothing she could criticize. At 1:45 p.m., I drove to her house. The same mansion where I'd humiliated her 48 hours earlier. Her car was the only one in the driveway. Good. I knocked twice. She answered immediately like she'd been waiting by the door. Her makeup was perfect. Her hair freshly done. She wore a cream cashmere sweater and pearls. Power dressing. Come in, she said. No smile this time. I followed her to the living room. She gestured to the couch but remained standing. Classic dominance move. I sat anyway, phone in my pocket, already recording. Coffee? She asked. No. Suit yourself. She poured herself a cup from the silver service, taking her time, making me wait. When she finally sat, it was in the armchair across from me, elevated slightly. She crossed her legs, sipped her coffee, then set it down with a deliberate clink. Let's be frank, she said. You embarrassed me in front of my entire family. You made me look like a monster. You made yourself look like a monster. I just pressed play. Her jaw tightened. You had no right to record me in my own home. Actually, I did. I checked with 3 different lawyers before I did anything. In this state, you only need 1 party consent. I was that party. Lawyers. She laughed, but it was sharp. How much did that cost? Oh, wait. You can't afford lawyers, can you? Not on your little salary. Is there a point to this meeting? She leaned forward. The point is this. Devin is my son, my only son, and you've put him in an impossible position. Right now, he's confused, he's hurt, he doesn't know who to believe. He heard the recordings, he heard snippets, out of context, edited to make me look bad. She held up a hand when I started to protest. I'm not saying I was always kind. Maybe I was too honest sometimes. Maybe I pushed too hard because I wanted what's best for my son. But Devin knows I love him, and blood is thicker than water. That's not what that saying means, I said. The full quote is, the blood of the covenant is thicker than the water of the womb. It means the bonds we choose are stronger than family. Her eyes went cold. How intellectual. Did you Google that before coming here? What do you want, Veronica? She picked up a folder from the side table. Manila, crisp, official looking. She opened it, studied the contents like she was seeing them for the first time, though I knew she'd rehearsed this. I want you to understand your options. Devin is at his brother's house right now, yes, but I've been talking to him, and his sister, and his father. We've all been talking. About what? About the kind of person who would record private family conversations for a month, who would plan an ambush at a family dinner, who would weaponize technology to destroy someone. She looked up from the folder. That's not normal behavior. That's calculated, vengeful, Some might even say unhinged. My heart started pounding. You're twisting this. Am I? Because from where I'm sitting, you're the one who seems unstable. The entire family agrees. Even Devin is starting to see it. She slid a paper across the coffee table. This is a list of every family member who was at that dinner. 12 of them have agreed to sign statements that you manipulated the situation, that you've always been dramatic, that you've been trying to drive a wedge between Devin and his family since day one. I looked at the list. Names typed neatly. Felix, Bryn, Devin's dad Walter, his aunt Colleen, his cousins, everyone. This is insane. This is strategy. She pulled out another paper. And this is a psychiatric evaluation recommendation. We're all very concerned about you. Your paranoia. Your need to record people. Your inability to handle normal family dynamics. Devin has been encouraged to suggest marriage counseling. And if that doesn't work, we've been advised that he might need to consider whether this marriage is healthy for him. The room tilted. You're threatening me. I'm protecting my son. If you continue down this path, you'll lose him. But I'm offering you an alternative. She leaned back, satisfied. You apologize. Publicly. You admit you overreacted, that you took things out of context, that you were struggling with mental health issues and lashed out. You delete all the recordings. You go to therapy. And most importantly, you accept that I was trying to help you, in my own way, to be a better wife to my son. And if I don't, then we paint you as the villain, the unstable woman who tried to destroy a family. And Devin will divorce you within 6 months. You'll get nothing. No house, no money, nothing. We have lawyers who can drag this out for years. Can you afford that? I sat there processing. This was exactly what I'd expected and somehow worse. She'd spent 2 days building a counter-narrative, recruiting allies, creating a paper trail that made me look crazy. And the terrifying thing was, it might work. People believed Veronica. She was charming, established, connected. I was just the daughter-in-law who'd been around less than a year. I need time to think, I said. You have until Monday. That's 3 days. She stood up, signaling the meeting was over. Choose wisely. Because I promise you, if you choose wrong, you'll regret it for the rest of your life. I left without another word. In my car, I sat shaking for 5 minutes before I could drive. The recording was still running on my phone. I'd captured every word. But would it matter? She hadn't actually said anything overtly illegal. Just threats disguised as concern. Strategic manipulation wrapped in maternal worry. I drove home. Our home. The house Devin and I had bought together last year, the one I'd decorated with such hope. Now it felt empty, haunted by a marriage that might already be over. I pulled out my laptop and opened the evidence folder. 89 recordings, transcripts, the spreadsheet, the video I'd shown at dinner. I'd thought this was everything I needed. But Veronica had shown me something I hadn't considered. Evidence didn't matter if you controlled the narrative, and she controlled Devin's entire family. My phone rang. Felix, Devin's brother. Hey, he said when I answered. I just want you to know that list Mom showed you? I didn't sign anything. She typed my name without asking. You were there, I said. At the dinner. You heard what she said. I know. It was brutal. I've been telling Devin he needs to open his eyes. He paused. But Mom got to everyone else. Told them you edited the recordings. That you'd been planning this for months. That you're trying to take Devin away from the family. And people believed her because, let's be honest, what you did was pretty extreme. She gave me no choice. I believe you. But here's the thing. Devin's confused right now. He's hurt and angry and Mom is in his ear constantly. If you want to save your marriage, you need to talk to him directly. Don't let her control the conversation. He won't answer my calls. Then show up. He's at my place. Come tonight around 7. I'll make sure Mom isn't here. I hung up. Looked at the clock. 4 hours. I spent them preparing. I printed out every transcript, every recording backed up to 3 different cloud services. I wrote out a timeline of events, documented with dates and times. I wasn't going in defenseless this time. At 6:45 p.m., I drove to Felix's house. It was smaller than the family mansion, a normal suburban home. Devin's car was in the driveway. My stomach churned. Felix answered the door, nodded, and disappeared upstairs, giving us privacy. Devin was in the living room staring at his phone. He looked up when I entered and I saw it. The exhaustion, the conflict, the love mixed with betrayal. We'd been so happy 8 months ago, standing at an altar making promises. How had we gotten here? Hi, I said. Hey. I sat down, keeping distance between us. We need to talk, really talk. Not through texts or with Felix as a middleman. I don't know what to say, Devin said. I keep replaying everything and I can't make sense of it. Your mom asked to meet with me today. Alone. His head snapped up. What? When? This afternoon at 2 p.m. At her house. I pulled out my phone, played him the recording, watched his face change as he heard her threats. The psychiatric evaluation, the divorce within 6 months, the promise to destroy me. When it finished, he looked sick. She said that? Every word. And Devin, I need you to understand something. I didn't record her to hurt you. I recorded her because I was drowning. Because every single day she would tear me apart, and you would tell me I was overreacting. I needed proof. Not for revenge. For survival. He was quiet for a long time. My whole life, my mom has been intense. She has opinions and she shares them. But I never thought. He stopped. Started again. When I heard those recordings at dinner, it was like hearing a stranger. That wasn't the mom I knew. That's because she shows you a different version. She's loving and supportive to you. But to me, she's been cruel from day one. And when I tried to tell you, you chose her. I didn't choose her. I just thought you were misunderstanding her tone. Devin. She called me ugly. Said I let myself go. Questioned whether you'd want kids with me. Told me I wasn't good enough for you at least twice a week for 8 months. That's not a misunderstanding. That's abuse. His eyes filled with tears. Why didn't you tell me it was that bad? I did tell you. Every time. And every time you defended her. So I stopped telling you and started documenting instead. The way you did it, though, playing it at dinner in front of everyone, that was humiliating. What was I supposed to do? Come to you with recordings and risk you deleting them? Ask her politely to stop after 8 months of her ignoring my boundaries? I tried the normal ways. They didn't work. So I went nuclear, yes. Because I was out of options. He wiped his eyes. She's my mom. And I'm your wife, the person you chose to build a life with, the person you made vows to. I pulled out the folder I'd brought. She showed me a list today of family members who'll testify I'm unstable, that I manipulated the situation. She's building a case against me to force you into divorce. I handed him the papers. He read through them slowly. The list, the psychiatric evaluation recommendation, the strategy she'd laid out. His hands started shaking. She's trying to end our marriage, he whispered. She told me I have until Monday to apologize and delete all evidence, or she'll make sure I lose everything. Devin set the papers down, put his head in his hands. This is my fault. I should have protected you. I should have seen what she was doing. You were programmed from birth to trust her. She's your mom. I get it. No. He looked up at me. You don't get it. Because I've been sitting here for 2 days thinking about every interaction, every dinner, every family event. And now I'm remembering things differently. The way she'd criticize my ex-girlfriends. How Christine broke up with me after 6 months because she couldn't handle my family. How my high school girlfriend Claire told me my mom was controlling and I defended her just like I defended her with you. Devin, she's always been like this. I just never wanted to see it. Because if I saw it, I'd have to admit my mom isn't who I thought she was. That the woman who raised me is capable of cruelty. And that's a hard thing to accept. We sat in silence. Felix's clock ticked loudly from the mantel. Finally, Devin spoke again. What do you need from me? I need you to choose. Not between your family and me. Between enabling abuse and stopping it. Because if we stay together and you keep defending her, I'll be right back where I started. Being destroyed one comment at a time. I choose you, he said. I choose us. But I don't know how to do this. How to set boundaries with my own mother. We figure it out together. Maybe we need therapy. Maybe we need to go no contact for a while. I don't have all the answers. But I need to know you're on my side. Devin nodded, stood up, walked over and pulled me into his arms. I felt his chest heave as he cried. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I held him. Let myself cry too. What do we do about Monday? She wants an answer. We call her bluff. If she wants to paint you as unstable, fine. We have recordings of her threatening you. We have documentation of 8 months of abuse. We have her own words proving she's been running a campaign against you. Let her try to spin that. Your family will side with her. Then I lose my family. But I don't lose you. It should have felt like victory, but it just felt sad. Devin loved his mother even if he was choosing me. That love wouldn't disappear overnight. And Veronica wasn't going to accept defeat quietly. We spent that night at Felix's house. Devin called his mom the next morning, Saturday, put her on speaker so I could hear. Hi, honey, she said, her voice warm. How are you feeling? I know what you did, Devin said. The meeting yesterday, the threats, the list of family members. I heard the recording. Silence. Then, she recorded me again. Devin, this proves exactly what I've been saying. She's obsessed with— Stop. Just stop, Mom. His voice cracked. I heard what you said about destroying her, about divorce, about making her look unstable. That's not protecting me. That's manipulation. Devin, you don't understand. I understand perfectly. And here's what's going to happen. You're going to back off. No more comments about my wife. No more family meetings about her mental health. No more threats. If you can't treat her with basic respect, then you won't have access to either of us. You're choosing her over your own mother. I'm choosing my marriage. The way you should have supported me in doing from the start. Devin, please. He hung up, stared at the phone. I just hung up on my mother. Are you okay? No, but I will be. The rest of Saturday was quiet. We stayed at Felix's, ordering takeout, watching mindless TV. Not talking about Veronica or marriage or the impossible situation we'd found ourselves in. Just being together, remembering why we'd fallen in love in the first place. Devin made me laugh with a terrible impression of a cooking show host. I beat him at Mario Kart for the first time ever. Small, normal moments in the middle of chaos. Sunday morning, my phone exploded. Texts from numbers I didn't recognize. Family members I barely knew. All saying variations of the same thing. How dare you turn Devin against his mother? You're destroying this family. We know what you really are. Devin's phone was worse. His Aunt Colleen called him a traitor. His cousin demanded he come to his senses. His dad Walter sent a long text about respecting the woman who raised him. The family had mobilized, exactly as Veronica promised. They don't know the full story, Devin said, reading through messages. Mom's been feeding them lies, then tell them the truth. They won't believe me, not if it means admitting Mom is wrong. He was right. When families function like cults, questioning the leader becomes heresy. We could show them all 89 recordings and they'd find ways to excuse it. She was just being honest. She was trying to help. You're too sensitive. The same gaslighting on a larger scale. By Sunday evening, we'd made a decision. We weren't going to respond to anyone. No explanations, no justifications, no defending ourselves. We'd been in court of public opinion and lost before the trial even started, so we'd step out of the courtroom entirely. Monday morning, Devin and I drove home together. Our home, not his brother's guest room. We walked through the door holding hands and it felt like reclaiming territory. We spent the day cleaning, reorganizing, literally washing Veronica's influence out of our space. I threw out the decorative pillows she'd given us, the ones that never matched our style. Devin removed the family photos from the mantel, keeping only pictures of the two of us. At 2 p.m., right on schedule, Veronica called. Devin answered, put her on speaker. Well, she said, have you made your decision? I'm not apologizing, I said. I'm not deleting the recordings, and I'm not going to therapy to fix problems you created. Then you've chosen the hard way. I'm sorry it came to this, but you've left me no choice. Actually, Devin said, we've made a choice. We're going no contact with you for 6 months. Minimum. No calls, no texts, no family events. If you try to reach out, we'll block you. If you send family members to harass us, we'll block them too. And if you try to interfere with our marriage in any way, we'll file a restraining order. Another silence. Longer this time. When Veronica spoke again, her voice had lost all its sweetness. You'll regret this, Devin. Both of you. Maybe, he said, but we'll regret it together. He hung up. We looked at each other. That's it, I said. We really did it. Yeah, the fallout was immediate. By Tuesday, we'd been removed from every family group chat. By Wednesday, Devin's dad called to tell him he was disappointed. By Friday, his sister Bryn sent a long email about how I'd brainwashed her brother. We read them all, saved them for documentation, and didn't respond. The first month was hard. Devin would get sad sometimes, missing his family. He'd see something funny and instinctively want to text his mom, then remember he couldn't. I'd find him looking at old family photos, grief written all over his face. Cutting off toxic family doesn't mean you don't love them, it just means you love yourself more. But slowly we healed. We started going to couples therapy, learning to communicate better. Devin worked with an individual therapist on untangling years of enmeshment with his mother. I processed the trauma of 8 months of daily degradation. We had date nights where we didn't talk about Veronica at all. We made new friends, couples who actually liked both of us. We built a life that was ours, not the one his family had prescribed. 3 months in, Felix reached out. He'd had his own confrontation with their mother, defending our decision to go no contact. She'd accused him of choosing sides. He'd said he was choosing reality over delusion. Now he was on restricted access too, only seeing the family at major holidays, enduring lectures about enabling me. She's telling everyone you had a psychotic break, he told us over coffee. That Devin is staying out of obligation and fear, that you've threatened to release more recordings if he leaves. None of that is true, I said. I know. But the family wants to believe it because the alternative is admitting mom is abusive. That's too uncomfortable. Devin nodded. It's easier to blame the outsider than question the matriarch. For what it's worth, Felix said. Bryn is starting to have doubts. She won't admit it, but I heard her questioning some of mom's stories. The timelines don't match up. The details keep changing. She's not ready to break ranks yet, but she's thinking about it. 4 months in, I got a Facebook message from Christine. Yes, that Christine, the one Veronica mentioned in her recordings. The one Devin supposedly would have been happier with. I heard what happened, she wrote, and I just want to say I'm proud of you for standing up to her. She made my life hell when I dated Devin, told me I wasn't pretty enough, wasn't accomplished enough, wasn't good enough for her son. Devin defended her every time. It's why I left. I couldn't compete with his mother. I hope it's different now. I hope he finally sees what she is. I showed Devin the message. He read it 3 times. I never knew it was that bad for her. You didn't want to know, just like you didn't want to know with me. But I know now. 5 months in, we got a wedding invitation. Bryn was getting married. The ceremony was at Veronica's house. We weren't invited. Not directly anyway. Felix forwarded us a copy of the invitation, told us the family had specifically discussed not inviting us. Veronica had said our presence would make people uncomfortable, that Bryn's special day shouldn't be overshadowed by drama. Do you want to go? I asked Devin. It's my sister's wedding. That wasn't what I asked. He stared at the invitation for a long time. No, I don't want to go. Because if I go, Mom will act like everything is fine. Like she didn't spend months trying to destroy my marriage. Like we're one big happy family again. And I can't pretend that. 6 months in, we had our review with the therapist. So, she said, how do you feel about the no contact period ending? I don't want it to end, Devin said immediately. I've been happier in these 6 months than I've been in years. I sleep better. I don't have constant anxiety about the next family event. I don't have to watch my wife be torn apart while pretending everything is normal. What about you? The therapist asked me. I want him to have a relationship with his family if that's what he needs, but not at the cost of my safety. So if contact resumes, there have to be non-negotiable boundaries and consequences when those boundaries are crossed. We drafted them together. The boundaries. Veronica must acknowledge the harm she caused and apologize sincerely. All communication goes through Devin first. She doesn't get my phone number back. No comments about my appearance, career, homemaking, or fertility. Ever. Family events are optional. We attend based on our comfort, not obligation. If she violates any boundary, we leave immediately and reset the no-contact clock. She doesn't get to be alone with our future children until trust is rebuilt. If we have children, we can record any interaction if we feel unsafe. No complaints about privacy. Devin sent the boundaries via email. Veronica responded within an hour. These are outrageous demands. I'm your mother, not some criminal on probation. I won't be dictated to by that woman. If you want a relationship with your family, you'll come back with respect and humility. Otherwise, stay away. So we stayed away. 6 months became 8. 8 became 10. Devin stopped checking family social media. I stopped waiting for the apology that would never come. We started talking about buying a bigger house, getting a dog, maybe, eventually, kids. Then, on a random Tuesday almost a year after the dinner party, Devin got a call from the hospital. His dad, Walter, had a heart attack. Massive, sudden, critical. The family was gathering. He needed to come. We drove to the hospital in silence. I didn't know if I should go in or wait in the car. Devin squeezed my hand. Together, the waiting room was full of family. Veronica, Bryn, Felix, assorted aunts and uncles. Everyone looked exhausted, terrified. When we walked in, the room went quiet. Veronica's eyes found me immediately, filled with pure hate. But she didn't say anything. Her husband was dying. Even she wouldn't cause a scene right now. Felix updated us. Quadruple bypass surgery. Touch and go. They wouldn't know for hours if he'd survive. Devin sat down, head in his hands. I stayed standing, ready to defend us if necessary. But nobody approached. They whispered among themselves, shot glances our way, kept their distance. Hours passed. A surgeon emerged, tired but smiling. He made it through surgery. Next 48 hours are critical, but he's stable. The room exhaled collectively. Veronica burst into tears. Bryn held her. Family members hugged, relieved. Devin stood up, looking lost. He approached his mom slowly. I'm glad he's okay, he said. She looked at him like she wanted to hug him, like she wanted to pull him close and never let go. But then her eyes flicked to me, standing behind him, and her expression hardened. He asked for you, she said to Devin. Before the surgery, he wanted to know where you were, why his son wasn't there. I'm here now. Are you? Or are you just visiting before you disappear for another year? Mom, please. Your father almost died today, and you weren't here. Because of her. She pointed at me, not bothering to use my name. She's taken you away from your family, from the people who actually love you. I felt Devin tense. This was the moment. After almost a year, nothing had changed. His father almost died, and his mother was still making me the villain. He could take the bait, fall back into old patterns, or he could hold the line. We weren't here, Devin said carefully, because you refused to respect basic boundaries. Because you chose being right over having a relationship with me. That's not on her. That's on you. How dare you? I love you, Mom. I love Dad. But I also love my wife. And I'm not going to keep sacrificing her to make you comfortable. If you want me in your life, the boundaries stand. All of them. Starting with an apology. Veronica's face went through several emotions. Shock, anger, hurt, calculation. Finally, she settled on cold. Then I guess we have nothing more to discuss. She turned her back on us. Literally turned around and walked to the other side of the waiting room. The family watched, uncertain. Bryn looked like she might say something but stayed quiet. Felix gave us a sad smile. Nothing more. We left. Got in the car. Drove home. Devin cried the whole way, grieving the family that could have been. The mother who should have loved his wife. The father who almost died while they were estranged. I held his hand while he drove, not saying anything. What was there to say? At home, Devin collapsed on the couch. What if he had died? What if those were the last words between us? Him asking where I was and me not being there. You're here now. He made it through. You can visit him when he's awake. She won't let me near him. She doesn't control the hospital. We'll figure it out. We did. The next day, Devin called the hospital, explained the situation to a social worker, got information about visiting outside family group hours. He went alone that first time, not wanting to provoke Veronica. Walter was weak, but conscious. They talked for 20 minutes before a nurse said he needed rest. Devin came home lighter. He doesn't blame me, he said, for the no contact. He said he didn't understand at first, but lying there facing death, he thought about his own marriage, about the compromises he's made to keep peace. And he said he was proud of me for choosing differently. Did he know what your mom did? Some of it. Not all. She kept him on a need-to-know basis. But enough that he wasn't surprised when I told him the full story. Over the next 2 weeks, Devin visited his dad every day. Veronica scheduled her visits opposite his, making sure they never overlapped. Walter was discharged after 16 days, sent home with strict orders for rest and cardiac rehab. Devin went to see him at the house during a window when Veronica was at her book club. Father and son, talking without the matriarch controlling the conversation. Your mother is hurting, Walter told him. She feels like she lost you. She didn't lose me. She pushed me away. From her perspective, you chose a girl you've known a year over the woman who raised you. I chose my marriage over tolerating abuse. Walter nodded slowly. I understand that more than you know. Your mother has very firm ideas about how things should be. She always has. And when reality doesn't match those ideas, she tries to force it into shape. He paused. She means well. Does she? Or does she mean to control? His father didn't answer that, but he didn't need to. After 40 years of marriage, he knew who his wife was. He'd just made different choices about what he could live with. Will you come to Sunday dinner? Walter asked. Not every week, but sometimes. Let me see my son. If Mom can be civil, I'll talk to her. The first Sunday dinner was scheduled for 3 weeks later. Devin and I debated for hours whether to go. We role-played scenarios, planned exit strategies, agreed on signals if things got toxic. I offered to stay home, let him go alone. He refused. Together or not at all. We arrived at 6 p.m. exactly on time. Felix was already there with his girlfriend Tessa. Bryn was there with her new husband Joel. Walter answered the door, looking thin but alive. Come in, come in. The dining room table was set for 8. Veronica was in the kitchen, putting final touches on dinner. She didn't look up when we entered, didn't acknowledge our presence, just continued arranging food on platters with precise, angry movements. We sat down. Felix made nervous small talk about work. Bryn asked about our house. Joel, who'd never met me, introduced himself politely. Walter suggested we say grace. Everyone bowed their heads. Everyone except Veronica, who stared directly at me through the entire prayer, her eyes hard. Dinner was tense but not explosive. Veronica passed dishes without making eye contact with me, spoke to Devin in short sentences. Pass the salt. Did you try the chicken? Never addressing me directly, never using my name, but not openly attacking either. It was the coldest politeness I'd ever experienced. Halfway through the meal, Bryn cleared her throat. So, Joel and I have news. Everyone looked up. Bryn glanced at her husband, who nodded encouragingly. We're pregnant. 12 weeks. Everything looks healthy. The table erupted in congratulations. Walter beamed. Felix cheered. Veronica's entire face transformed, joy breaking through the ice. Oh, sweetheart, this is wonderful. Our first grandbaby. She got up, hugged Bryn, kissed Joel's cheek. When are you due? Do you know if it's a boy or girl? Oh, we have so much to plan. I watched Devin's face. He was smiling, genuinely happy for his sister. But there was something else there too, recognition, because this was what Veronica had wanted for us. The baby that would cement Devin's place in the family. The grandchild she'd been pressuring us about since month 2 of our marriage. Congratulations, I said to Bryn. That's really exciting. Bryn smiled at me. Thanks. I know Mom was kind of pushy about this stuff with you guys. I just want you to know, this wasn't about that. We were ready. Of course. The rest of dinner was easier. Veronica was distracted, already planning nurseries and baby showers. She even looked at me once without hatred, though it didn't last. By dessert, she'd remembered I existed, and the coldness returned. We left early, claiming I had work in the morning. In the car, Devin was quiet. You okay? I asked. That's going to be our life if we have kids. Her, obsessing over them, trying to control how we parent, making comments about doing things her way. Maybe. Or maybe we set boundaries from day one. She doesn't get unsupervised time. She doesn't get to undermine us. And if she can't handle that, she doesn't get to be involved. She's going to be all over Bryn. You saw her face. This is what she's been waiting for. Let her focus on Bryn's baby then. Takes the pressure off us. Over the next months, we established a pattern. Sunday dinners twice a month, always with Walter present. Never just Veronica. We'd arrive together, leave together, and keep conversations surface level. Veronica maintained her cold politeness. I was present, but invisible. Spoken around, but never to. It wasn't healthy, but it was sustainable. A truce, not peace. Bryn's pregnancy progressed. The family threw elaborate showers and celebrations. Veronica bought out entire stores worth of baby items. She created a Pinterest board with 847 pins. She called Bryn 3 times a day with advice. It was overwhelming, but Bryn seemed happy, or maybe just too tired to fight it. Devin and I focused on our own life. We got the dog, a rescue mutt named Betty, who loved everyone. We traveled, taking weekend trips to places Veronica had never approved of. We made decisions without asking for family input. We existed outside the family bubble, visiting occasionally, but never fully re-entering. Then one Sunday, about 4 months into our careful detente, things shifted. We arrived for dinner to find Veronica alone. No Walter, no Felix, no Bryn and Joel. "Where is everyone?" Devin asked. "Your father is resting. He had a bad day, and the others canceled. So it's just us." She smiled, but it wasn't kind. "Come, sit. Dinner is ready." Every alarm bell in my head went off. This was a setup. Devin sensed it too. "Maybe we should come back when Dad's feeling better." "Nonsense. I made dinner. You're here. We're going to eat like a family." We should have left, but Walter was upstairs, potentially needing his son, and Devin didn't want to abandon him, so we sat down. The 3 of us at a table set for 8. Veronica at the head, Devin and I side by side, united front. She served the food: pot roast, potatoes, vegetables, all of Devin's favorites. She made conversation about weather and traffic, safe topics, boring topics. We made it through the main course without incident. I started to relax slightly. Maybe this was just dinner. Maybe I was paranoid. Then came dessert. Veronica brought out apple pie with ice cream, Devin's favorite since childhood. She cut 3 slices, served them carefully. We ate in silence. The pie was perfect. Of course it was. Veronica was an excellent cook. That had never been the problem. "So," she said, setting down her fork, "I've been thinking about our situation." "Mom," Devin started. "Let me finish. I've been thinking and I've realized something. You're both waiting for an apology from me." Devin and I exchanged glances. Was this actually happening? But I don't know what I'm supposed to apologize for. Having opinions? Trying to help? Wanting the best for my son? She looked genuinely confused. "I've given this months of thought and I truly don't understand what I did that was so terrible. You systematically insulted and belittled me for 8 months, I said. You made comments about my appearance, my worth, my ability to be a good wife. You questioned whether I could give Devin children. You told him he should have married someone else. I was being honest, perhaps too honest. But isn't honesty important in families? There's honest and there's cruel. So I'm cruel now? For speaking my mind? For not walking on eggshells around someone too sensitive to handle reality?" She turned to Devin. "Is this what you want? A wife who can't take any criticism? Who records private conversations and weaponizes them? Who keeps you away from your family?" "Don't," Devin said. "Don't twist this around." "I'm not twisting anything. I'm asking legitimate questions. Because from where I sit, I lost my son over some hurt feeling, over words taken out of context. And I'm supposed to apologize for that?" She laughed, bitter. "I won't. I can't apologize for something I don't believe was wrong." "Then we're done here," I said, standing up. "Wait." Veronica's voice changed, softer. "Please, sit. I'm not trying to fight. I'm trying to understand. Help me understand what you need from me." Against my better judgment, I sat back down. "I need you to acknowledge that your words hurt me, that they were designed to make me feel small and inadequate, that you weaponized your relationship with Devin to make me doubt myself. I need you to see that what you did was abuse. But that's not how I see it at all. I was trying to help you improve, to be better, for Devin's sake. I didn't need to improve. I needed to be accepted. But you have to admit, you could have tried harder. With the cooking, the housekeeping, the way you present yourself. If you just listen to my suggestions instead of getting defensive." "This is exactly the problem," Devin interrupted. "You think you're being helpful, but you're being controlling. You think you're offering suggestions, but you're issuing commands. And when someone doesn't comply, you tear them down until they either submit or leave." Veronica's face tightened. "I raised you. I know what's best for you. I'm 31 years old. I don't need you to know what's best for me anymore. Clearly you do, given the choices you're making." "We're leaving," I said again, standing. This time Devin stood with me. "If you walk out that door, you're choosing her over me." Again, Veronica's voice rose. "You're saying that this outsider, this girl you barely know, matters more than your own mother, after everything I've done for you, after I gave up my career to raise you, after I sacrificed everything." "You didn't sacrifice everything for me," Devin said quietly. "You sacrificed everything to control me, and I'm done letting you." We walked out. Veronica followed us to the front door, her voice escalating. "You're ungrateful, both of you. After all I've done, this is how you repay me? You'll regret this. You'll come crawling back when you realize what you've lost." We drove away with her still shouting. In the car, Devin was shaking. I really thought she might apologize, that maybe this year had changed her. People like your mom don't change. They just find new ways to justify their behavior. What now? Now we go back to no contact, for real this time. No Sunday dinners, no compromise. She showed us exactly who she is. What about my dad? We'll find a way to see him that doesn't involve her. But Devin, you have to accept that she's never going to give you the mother you deserve. You can keep waiting for her to change, or you can grieve the mother you wish you had and move forward. That night, Devin wrote an email to his father explaining what happened. Walter called the next day, apologetic but not surprised. They arranged to meet for lunch once a week, just the 2 of them. Father-son time without Veronica's interference. It wasn't perfect, but it was something. Months passed. Bryn had her baby, a girl named Eleanor. The family threw a massive celebration we weren't invited to. Felix sent us photos. The baby was beautiful. Bryn looked exhausted and happy. Veronica looked triumphant, holding her first grandchild like a prize. "Do you think she'll try to turn Eleanor against us?" I asked Devin. "Probably. Tell her stories about the terrible aunt and uncle who abandoned the family. But Bryn's smart, and Felix will run interference. Eleanor will make her own choices when she's old enough." We sent a gift. A thoughtful one, a first edition children's book collection we knew Bryn would love. She texted a thank you, short, polite, nothing more. The gap between Devin and his sister had widened. Not from animosity, but from the exhaustion of navigating family politics. It was easier for Bryn to focus on her baby and keep peace with Veronica than to maintain a relationship with us. 2 years after the dinner party disaster, we bought a new house. Bigger, in a different neighborhood, 40 minutes from the family. We didn't tell anyone we were moving until it was done. Fresh start, clean slate. We hosted a housewarming party and invited friends we'd made since the fallout. People who didn't know the whole story, who just knew us as Devin and his wife, not as the couple who destroyed a family. Felix came to the party. So did Walter, defying Veronica's orders to stay away. She's my son, he told us. And I've missed too much already. He was healthier now, taking his medications, going to cardiac rehab religiously. The heart attack had scared him into changes. Not enough to leave Veronica, but enough to reclaim some independence. Your mother doesn't know I'm here, he admitted. She thinks I'm at my book club. You're in a book club? Devin asked, surprised. Started it 6 months ago. Needed something that was mine. Something she couldn't control or criticize or make about her. He looked around our new house. This is nice. You've built something good here. That night, after everyone left, Devin and I sat in our empty living room surrounded by boxes. Are we ever going to have kids? He asked. Do you want kids? I don't know. I love the idea of being a dad, but I'm terrified of repeating patterns, of becoming my mother, of screwing up a kid the way she screwed me up. You're not her. You've done the work to recognize the patterns. You've broken the cycle. Have I, though? Or am I just avoiding it by not having kids? There's no rule that says we have to have children. We can be happy and fulfilled just the two of us. Or we can foster, or adopt older kids who need someone. Or we can have biological children and do our best to raise them better. All options are valid. What do you want? I thought about it. Really thought. I want us, whatever form that takes. If kids are part of that, great. If not, also great. But I don't want to have children to prove something to your mother, or to complete some checklist of acceptable life choices. Deal. 3 years after the dinner party, I ran into Veronica at the grocery store, completely by accident, neither of us expecting it. We made eye contact across the produce section. For a moment, neither of us moved. Then she walked toward me, her cart full of baby items. Formula, diapers, tiny clothes. Eleanor? I asked, even though I knew Bryn was still breastfeeding. Bryn's pregnant again. Due in October. Another girl. She said it like an accomplishment. Her accomplishment? Congratulations to her. She's exhausted. 2 under 2. I'm helping as much as I can. A pause. She could use family support. I'm sure she has plenty. Not from Devin. He hasn't met Eleanor, his own niece. Don't you think that's sad? I think it's sad that you've created an environment where he doesn't feel welcome. I didn't create anything. He made his choice. You both did. She looked at my cart, notably free of baby items. No children yet? That's personal. After 3 years of marriage? Most people start wondering, especially your age. Clock's still ticking. And there it was. 3 years later, standing in the produce section, and she couldn't help herself. The little dig. The reminder that I wasn't meeting expectations. I felt the old anger rise, but then something else. Pity. You know what's sad, Veronica? Not that Devin doesn't see Eleanor, but that you're going to repeat the same patterns with those little girls that you did with your own children. You're going to control and criticize and make them feel like they're never good enough. And one day, they're going to be old enough to recognize it, to push back, and you'll lose them too. Just like you lost Devin. Her face went pale, then red. How dare! Have a nice day. I walked away, left her standing there among the apples and oranges, probably already composing a text to the family about how I'd attacked her unprovoked. I didn't care. That chapter of my life was closed. At home, I told Devin about the encounter. Did you really say that to her? Every word. He laughed. Actually laughed. The first time he'd laughed about anything regarding his mother in years. I wish I'd seen her face. It was pretty spectacular. Think she'll tell everyone? Absolutely. But we're used to being the villains. 4 years after the dinner party, Walter died. Another heart attack. Massive and quick. He was gone before the ambulance arrived. Veronica called Devin herself, her voice broken. Your father's dead. You need to come home. We went to the funeral. Of course we went. Whatever happened between us and Veronica, Walter had tried. He'd maintained a relationship with Devin, met us for lunch monthly, celebrated our victories quietly. He deserved to be honored. The funeral home was packed. Walter had been well-liked, a genuinely good man who'd spent his life trapped in a difficult marriage. The family was there in full force. Bryn, now pregnant with her 3rd child at 30, looking exhausted. Felix with Tessa, engaged now. Assorted relatives we hadn't seen in 4 years. And Veronica, dressed in black, aged by grief, flanked by her daughters. When Devin approached to pay his respects, she collapsed against him, sobbing. My boy, you're here. He held her while she cried, let her grieve, didn't bring up any of the history or hurt. This moment wasn't about that. It was about a woman who'd lost her husband of 42 years, a son who'd lost his father. The rest could wait. At the service, Bryn spoke about growing up with a dad who taught her to ride a bike. Felix talked about fishing trips and terrible dad jokes. Devin told a story about Walter teaching him to change a tire, a memory from before everything got complicated. People laughed and cried. It was a good service. At the reception, family members approached us cautiously. An aunt who hadn't spoken to us in years hugged me, said she was sorry for everything. A cousin admitted he'd always thought we were treated unfairly. Bryn pulled Devin aside, showed him photos of Eleanor and her younger sister Riley. They should know their uncle, she said quietly. That's up to you, Devin told her. I know, and I'm sorry it took Dad dying for me to realize how much time we've wasted. She wiped her eyes. Mom's been saying for years that you abandoned us. But I've been thinking, we abandoned you too. We chose the easy path. You had a baby, 2 babies. You were building your own life. That's not an excuse. I could have tried harder. I should have tried harder. After the reception, after most people had left, Veronica approached us. She looked smaller somehow. Grief had carved her down to something more human. Thank you for coming, she said. It meant everything to have all my children here. Of course, Devin said. Your father loved you very much. Even when you were apart, he talked about you all the time. She paused. He wanted us to reconcile before he died. He tried so hard to make that happen. I know, but we never did, and now it's too late for him to see it. Mom, I'm not apologizing. I can't apologize for being who I am. But I am saying that life is short, and family is family, and maybe we could try again. I looked at Devin. This was his choice. His mother. His decision. We can try, he said carefully. But the boundaries still stand. All of them. I understand. She didn't. Not really. But she was trying in her way. And maybe that was enough. Or maybe it wasn't. Time would tell. 5 years after the dinner party, Bryn invited us to Eleanor's 5th birthday party. A big backyard celebration with bounce houses and ponies. All of the family would be there, including Veronica. We debated going, but Eleanor was 5 now, old enough to remember, and she shouldn't be punished for adult problems. We showed up with a carefully chosen gift. A robot building kit for the girl who apparently loved science. Eleanor took one look at us, decided we were strangers, and hid behind Bryn. But Riley, 3 years old and fearless, walked right up to Devin and asked if he was her uncle. I am, he said. Why haven't I met you before? That's a long story. I like stories. Devin smiled. Maybe when you're older. Veronica watched from across the yard. Didn't approach. Didn't interfere. Just watched her son interact with grandchildren he barely knew. It must have hurt. Good. As the party wound down, Bryn pulled us aside. I want you to be more involved, if you're willing. The girls should know you. What about your mom? I'll handle mom. You're my brother. They're your nieces. That's what matters. So we started seeing Bryn's family once a month, sometimes at her house, sometimes at ours, always without Veronica. Eleanor warmed up to us slowly, decided I was okay when I helped her build a robot. Riley attached herself to Devin immediately, the way small children do. Bryn's baby, a son named Patrick, was too young to care about family politics. It wasn't the family Devin had grown up with, but it was something, a new family, built on choice rather than obligation, with boundaries and respect and honesty. It wasn't perfect, but it was ours. 6 years after the dinner party, we decided to try for a baby, not because we had to, not because anyone expected it, but because we wanted to. After years of building our life, our marriage, our sense of self separate from Veronica's influence, we felt ready, or as ready as anyone ever is. It took 8 months of trying before I got pregnant. We told no one at first, superstitious after everything we'd been through. But at 12 weeks, we shared the news. Felix was thrilled. Bryn cried happy tears. Walter would have been over the moon. We told Veronica last. At Sunday dinner, the monthly obligation we'd resumed after Walter's death. Just the 3 of us, strained and polite. She was cooking pot roast again, still trying to win Devin back through his stomach. We have news, Devin said over dessert. Veronica looked up, hopeful. We're pregnant. 16 weeks. It's a boy. Her face transformed. Pure joy, unguarded and real. For a moment, she was just a grandmother learning about a new grandchild. But then she recovered. The mask slipped back. Well, she said, it's about time. Mom, what? I'm just saying. You've been married 6 years. I was starting to wonder if something was wrong. And there it was. Even in a moment of happiness, she couldn't help herself. The small dig. The reminder that we'd failed to meet her timeline. Nothing's wrong, I said. We waited until we were ready. Of course. I'm sure you had your reasons. She smiled. But it was tight. I assume I'll be involved. With my grandson? With boundaries, Devin said. Always boundaries with you two. Can't a grandmother be excited? Be excited, but understand that this is our child. We make the decisions. I raised 3 children. I think I know a thing or two about babies. And we appreciate your experience. But this isn't negotiable. You follow our rules or you don't get access. Her expression hardened. You'd really keep me from my own grandchild? If you can't respect us? Yes. We left shortly after. In the car, I put my hand on my belly, feeling the slight swell. This kid's going to have such a complicated family. Most kids do. At least ours will have parents who are on the same page, who protect him, who don't use him as a weapon. Think your mom will ever change? No. But I've stopped expecting her to. That's different. Our son was born on a Tuesday in March, weighing 7 pounds 3 ounces. We named him Theodore Walter, after Devin's father. Theo for short. He had Devin's eyes and my nose and an impressive set of lungs. The hospital room filled with visitors. Felix brought balloons. Bryn brought her kids to meet their cousin. Friends from work stopped by. And after everyone else left, after we'd established he was ours first, we called Veronica. She arrived in 15 minutes. Must have been waiting. She brought an expensive stuffed animal and a judgmental expression. He's so small. Most babies are. You're breastfeeding, I hope. Formula is poison. We're combination feeding. It's working for us. In my day, this isn't your day, Devin said. This is ours. You can be supportive, or you can leave. She swallowed whatever she was going to say, took Theo carefully, held him with practiced hands, and for a moment she looked almost soft. He looks like you did, when you were born. Same little face. Yeah? You were perfect too. My perfect baby boy. She kissed Theo's forehead. I'm going to spoil you, rotten little one. Within our rules, I reminded her. Yes, within your rules. But her eyes said something different. She was already planning how to work around us. The first months were hard. Not just normal new baby hard, but navigating Veronica hard. She showed up unannounced. She criticized how we swaddled. She questioned our pediatrician's advice. She bought things we'd specifically said we didn't want. Every boundary was tested. Finally, after she showed up at midnight, just to check on the baby, Devin laid down the law. No more unannounced visits. You call first. If we say no, you respect it. And you stop questioning every decision we make. This is our baby, not yours. I'm just trying to help. By undermining us? By making us feel incompetent? That's not help. That's control. Devin, honey, no. Dad's gone. You don't get to make me feel guilty anymore. Either you respect our boundaries or you don't see Theo. Your choice. She chose respect. Barely. She'd call before visiting, though she'd complain about needing an appointment to see her own grandson. She'd bite her tongue when she disagreed with our choices, though we'd see it in her face. She brought gifts we'd approved, though she'd mention what she really wanted to buy if only we were reasonable. But she showed up. That was something. Theo was 3 months old, sitting in his bouncy seat, when Veronica looked at me and said, "You're doing a good job with him." I almost dropped the bottle I was washing. What? With Theo, you're a good mother, better than I expected. It wasn't quite an apology for the years of fertility comments, but it was close. An acknowledgement that her judgment had been wrong, that I was enough. Thank you, I said carefully. Don't let it go to your head. But she almost smiled. Theo turned 1. We threw a party at our house, invited everyone, family, friends, our weird mixed collection of people who'd stood by us. Veronica showed up with an enormous present and moderately good behavior. She only made 3 passive-aggressive comments the entire day. Progress. Eleanor and Riley ran around playing with Theo, teaching him how to clap. Bryn was pregnant again, her 4th. Felix and Tessa had gotten married quietly, just family. The family was growing, evolving, becoming something new. Devin's cousin pulled me aside at one point. I owe you an apology. For what? The dinner party. I signed that list Mom showed you, or I let her use my name. I was scared of going against her, but I've seen over the years how she treats you, how she twists things, and I'm sorry I was part of that. Thank you for saying that. For what it's worth, most of us know now that you were right, that she was out of line, but saying it out loud means going against her, and that's hard. I know. By the time Theo was 2, we'd settled into an uneasy peace. Veronica saw her grandson regularly, but understood she wasn't in charge. Devin had reconstructed his relationship with his family, but on his terms. I was acknowledged, if not always liked. It wasn't the Hallmark movie ending, but it was real. One day, I was cleaning out closets when I found an old phone, my backup from years ago, the one I'd used to record Veronica. I charged it out of curiosity, scrolled through the files. 89 recordings, transcripts, the spreadsheet I'd made in desperation. Devin found me sitting on the floor, holding the phone. What's that? Evidence? From 6 years ago? When I was documenting everything. He sat down next to me. Do you still listen to them? Haven't in years. Don't need to. I know what happened. What are you going to do with it? I looked at the phone. This thing that had saved my marriage and destroyed a family and rebuilt it different. Delete it. Really? I don't need proof anymore. She either respects me or she doesn't. Either way, I know my worth. That's what matters. I pressed delete. Watched the files disappear one by one. 89 recordings vanishing into digital nothing. It felt like release. No regrets? Devin asked. About recording her? No. About playing them at dinner? Sometimes, but only because of how hard the aftermath was. Not because I was wrong. You weren't wrong. You were surviving. We sat there in comfortable silence. Below us, we could hear Theo singing to himself in his room. Outside, neighbors were mowing lawns. Normal Saturday sounds. Normal life. Do you think she'll ever really apologize? I asked. No, but I think she knows she messed up. You can see it sometimes, when she looks at Theo and realizes how easily she could have missed this. How close she came to losing me completely. It's not the same as saying the words, but it's something. Is it enough? For me, yeah. Because I've stopped waiting for her to be different. I see who she is. And I've decided how much of her I can handle. That's all any of us can do with difficult family. Theo called for us. Nap time was over. We got up, went to our son, did the normal parent things, made snacks, changed diapers, read books, built a life that was ours, not dictated by anyone else's expectations. 7 years after the dinner party, Bryn called. I need to talk to you about something. Can you come over? We went, bringing Theo. Bryn's house was chaos. 4 kids under 6, toys everywhere, laundry mountains in every room. She looked exhausted, but determined. I'm going back to work, she announced. Part-time at first, but work. And Mom is losing her mind. What does she say? That I'm abandoning my children, that I'm being selfish, that a mother's place is in the home. Bryn laughed bitterly. The same thing she said about you, about your career. I never understood why you pushed back so hard, but now I do. What do you need from us? Permission? Validation? I don't know. Just someone to tell me I'm not being a terrible mother by wanting something for myself. You're not a terrible mother, I said. You're a person with needs and wants beyond your kids. That doesn't make you selfish. It makes you human. That's what Joel says. But Mom's voice is so loud in my head, telling me I'm doing it wrong, that I'm failing. Welcome to the club, Devin said. She makes everyone feel like that. It's her superpower. How did you deal with it? Badly at first. Then with recordings. Then with distance. Now with boundaries. It's a process. Bryn nodded slowly. I think I need distance. Not permanent, but some. Enough to figure out who I am, separate from who she wants me to be. We'll support you however you need. She hugged us both. Thank you, and I'm sorry for not supporting you sooner, for choosing the easier path. You were trying to survive. We all were. Over the next year, Bryn pulled back from Veronica, set limits on visits, stopped asking for advice, went back to work as a part-time occupational therapist. Veronica tried the same tactics she'd used on us. Guilt, manipulation, recruiting family members to pressure Bryn. It worked less well this time. Bryn had seen the playbook. Felix, watching this, started setting his own boundaries. Tessa was pregnant with their first, and he didn't want his kids raised with Veronica's constant criticism. The family was slowly, painfully, learning to exist separately from the matriarch's control. At Sunday dinners, now expanded to include multiple families, Veronica was outnumbered. She'd make a critical comment and 3 people would shut it down. She'd try to dictate something, and everyone would politely ignore her. She was losing power, not through exile, but through irrelevance. Her children were adults making choices she couldn't control. Sometimes I'd catch her looking around the table, confusion and hurt on her face. This wasn't the family she'd built. These weren't the obedient children she'd raised. She'd lost something and couldn't quite figure out what. But we were all happier, healthier. Devin hadn't had a stress nightmare in 2 years. Bryn was thriving at work. Felix was planning a life with Tessa that included exactly the amount of family involvement they chose. Even Veronica's grandkids, the ones old enough to have personalities, were growing up with more freedom than any of us had. Theo turned 3. We threw him a superhero party. He wore a cape and insisted everyone call him Super Theo. Veronica brought him a truck, age-appropriate and non-judgmental. She watched him play with other kids and said, "He's very confident. Must get that from Devin." From both of us. I corrected. "Yes, I suppose he does." She paused. "You've done well with him, both of you. He's a happy child." It was the closest she'd ever come to admitting I was a good parent, that we, together, were doing something right. Thank you. Don't let it go to your head. I know. We almost smiled at each other. Almost. 8 years after the dinner party, I was cleaning out the attic when I found a box of wedding photos. Us, young and hopeful, surrounded by family. Veronica in every picture, smiling, playing the perfect mother-in-law. Devin's dad looking proud. Everyone together, everyone happy, before it all fell apart. I brought the box downstairs. Devin and I looked through them together, showing Theo pictures from before he existed. That's Grandma Veronica, Devin told him, pointing. And that's Grandpa Walter, who died before you were born. Was he nice? Theo asked. Very nice. He would have loved you. Is Grandma Veronica nice? Devin and I looked at each other. How do you explain complicated family to a 3-year-old? She tries to be, Devin said finally. She doesn't always succeed, but she's family, and we love her anyway. Good enough answer. Theo lost interest, went back to his trucks. But I thought about those words. She tries to be. Did she? Or was she just trying to maintain access? I didn't know. Maybe it didn't matter. That night, after Theo was asleep, Devin and I talked about the last 8 years. Everything we'd survived. Do you regret any of it? He asked. Recording her? No. Playing the recordings at dinner? Sometimes. But I'd do it again. Because without that catalyst, nothing changes. We'd still be stuck in the same pattern. Me suffering silently while you defended her. I'm sorry I made you suffer that long. You didn't know better. You'd been trained your whole life to accept her behavior as normal. It took something dramatic to break through that programming. Still, I should have believed you sooner. We're here now. That's what matters. We looked out at our backyard, the life we'd built, the swing set Devin installed, the garden I planted, Theo's toys scattered everywhere. This was worth fighting for, worth the pain of those early years. 9 years after the dinner party, Veronica had a health scare. A fall, a broken hip, complications from surgery. She was in the hospital for 2 weeks, vulnerable in a way we'd never seen. Devin visited every day. So did Bryn and Felix. We rallied around her because that's what family does, even difficult family. During one visit, when it was just Veronica and me in the room, she said something unexpected. I was wrong about you. What? When Devin first brought you home? I thought you weren't good enough. Too young, too inexperienced, not from the right background. I thought you'd hold him back. She shifted in the hospital bed, wincing. But you haven't. You've made him better, stronger, more sure of himself. And I resent you for it. Because it means you didn't do that? Because it means I held him back. All those years of trying to control him, I was just keeping him small. Easier to manage. She looked at me directly. I'm not apologizing. I still think I was doing what I thought was best. But I was wrong. It wasn't the apology I'd wanted 8 years ago, but it was honest. Maybe that was better. Thank you for saying that. Don't expect me to repeat it. This is probably the medication talking. I'll take what I can get. She almost smiled. Veronica recovered, moved into a retirement community at Bryn's insistence, somewhere with medical staff on site. She hated it, complained constantly, but secretly seemed relieved to have help. Her house was sold, the mansion where so many family dramas had played out. The era of Veronica's complete control was officially over. 10 years after the dinner party, we threw an anniversary party. A decade of marriage, against all odds. We invited everyone, family included. Veronica showed up with a wrapped present and minimal attitude. She'd mellowed slightly in her old age, or maybe just gotten tired of fighting. During the party, she pulled Devin aside. I watched from across the room as they talked. She was gesturing, explaining something. He was listening, nodding. When they came back, Devin had tears in his eyes. What was that about? I asked later. She told me she was proud of me, that I'd built a good life, that she'd failed in a lot of ways as a mother, but I'd succeeded despite her. He wiped his eyes. I didn't think I'd ever hear that from her. Did she apologize? Not exactly, but close enough. That night, after everyone left, we sat in our backyard under the stars. 10 years. 10 years of building and breaking and rebuilding, of therapy and boundaries and hard conversations, of choosing each other every single day. Was it worth it? Devin asked. All of this. The pain, the family drama, the years of conflict. I looked at our house where our son was sleeping peacefully, thought about the life we'd created, imperfect but ours. Yeah, it was worth it. I love you. I love you too. We sat there in comfortable silence. Above us, stars wheeled through the sky. Below us, the earth was solid and sure. And between us, a decade of choosing love over obligation, truth over peace, ourselves over expectations. The recordings were long gone, but the lessons remain. Stand up for yourself. Document abuse when necessary. Choose partners who choose you back. Set boundaries even when it's hard. Family is important, but not at the cost of your sanity. Somewhere across town, Veronica was probably in her retirement apartment, regretting or not regretting the past. We'd never know which. But it didn't matter anymore. We'd built something she couldn't tear down. A marriage based on mutual respect. A family defined by choice. A life that was wholly, completely, finally ours. And that was enough.